From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501. You are too good at bragging. Jin Yuhu's eyes were full of teasing, and he said, "Are you warning me?" Su Weifeng said lightly, "I'm just stating a fact." Jin Yuhu suddenly laughed, then spread his hands and said, "This is what you think, but this is not what I think. In front of me, only what I think is correct. Just like this 100 million, I think it is Zimbabwean dollars." Su Weifeng nodded and said, "You are right, I think so too." The two looked at each other. Jin Yuhu's eyes were wide open, and a strong momentum surged from his body. This momentum was cultivated little by little on the battlefield in the past few years, and it was gathered little by little between life and death. Feng Baoer, who was standing next to Su Weifeng, suddenly felt a strong breath of danger, and the hair on her back couldn't help but explode, and she looked at Jin Yuhu vigilantly. Or thought even emerged in her mind, "This is an extremely dangerous person." Su Weifeng's eyes were still clear and bright, as calm as a lake, and there was no momentum or power. But even so, Jin Yuhu didn't suppress Su Weifeng at all. It was as if he had used all his strength, but hit a ball of cotton. It was really uncomfortable. At this time, Jin Yuhu's cell phone rang. After looking at the number, Jin Yuhu sneered at Su Weifeng and said, "Let's play slowly." Then he walked out. Feng Baoer frowned and said, "This is definitely a very dangerous person. I can even feel that he has killed people." Su Weifeng nodded and said, "You should feel it well." Feng Baoer said again, "I must report this kind of person and pay special attention to him. By the way, who is he?" Su Weifeng came to the equipment and said lightly while doing exercise, "Jin Yuhu, the heir of the Jin family." "Jin family? Jin group?" Feng Baoer's face changed suddenly. "That's right." Feng Baoer's mouth twitched violently and said, "I didn't expect this guy to have such an identity. With such an identity, why would he kill people?" Su Weifeng turned his head and glanced at Feng Baoer and said, "Anyone who kills must be a criminal." Feng Baoer immediately said, "Of course, unless it is self-defense, but a person who is acting in self-defense will definitely not have such a scary aura." "Oh, naive." Su Weifeng shook his head. Feng Baoer was about to refute, but suddenly thought of something and said, "You mean, he was a soldier and went to the battlefield?" Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "You're not too stupid." Feng Baoer was about to glare at her, but she still had a sense of awe towards Su Weifeng and immediately grinned and said, "This is just my habit as a police officer." After practicing for a few moves, Su Weifeng said to Feng Baoer, "That guy might have ideas about you. You'd better stay away from him. You think too much." "Am I the kind of person who can be easily fooled?" Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, "I'm not talking about that. I mean if he wants to fight with you or something, don't agree. You are not his opponent. Is he that strong?" Feng Baoer glared at her immediately, a little unconvinced. "HMPH, do you really think you are strong? If I hadn't helped you, you would have died twice." Su Weifeng said unhappily. He didn't want to show off his achievements, but just wanted Feng Baoer to understand that there are too many strong people in this world. Her skills are just a little bit better than ordinary people. It seems okay, but in front of real strong people, it is not a scum or a scum. Feng Baoer lost her temper all of a sudden and said, "I'm trying hard to learn from you. I will become stronger and stronger in the future." Su Weifeng shook his head again and said, "I'm afraid that you have such a bad temper. Before you can get your wings hard, you will be thrown into the pot and boiled." Feng Baoer said guiltily, "How can my temper be so bad? By the way, you actually bet 100 million with Jin Yuhu. He is from the Jin group and has the confidence. How can you also have such confidence? What if you lose? Do you want to give him this?" Feng Baoer picked up the Zimbabwe dollar and said, "This is from a few years ago. This 100 million is not worth even $1. Su Weifeng laughed and didn't explain much. Feng Baoer was even more curious and said, "Hey, I know that your company has only invested a few million in total. Compared with me, you are a rich man, but compared with the prince of the Jin group, you are far behind." Su Weifeng had a good impression of Feng Baoer. If Feng Bao really wanted to check his background, she would definitely find out about his bank assets and real estate recently, and even find out that he is now a married man, and his wife is not Lin Zhuangsun, but Qiao Yushan. Feng Bao didn't know all this, which means that she did not use public power for personal matters. She is also a good police officer with strong principles. Su Weifeng smiled and said, yes, how can I compare with him? Feng Bao also shook her head and said, oh, you are really good. You dare to offend anyone. If they do something, they can make your company go bankrupt. There was also a worry on her face. Su Weifeng shrugged his shoulders and said, there's nothing we can do. We've already provoked him. For a man like that, even if we admit defeat, we can't. Besides, as a man, we can't admit defeat, even if we are beaten to death, right? Feng Bao puffed out his chest and said, of course. But he immediately shook his head and said, if it's just a fight or something, then of course you can't be a coward. But if it's something in the business world, you'd better admit defeat. Otherwise, what if you go bankrupt? I'm just a small policeman. Even if I want to help you, I can't. With his status, he only knows the mayor and the director. We are just small people, and they won't pay attention to us. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes and said, can't you say something nice? Can't I bankrupt him? Puff. Feng Bao burst into laughter and said, you are really good at bragging. You still want to bankrupt him? You are really funny. I don't believe you. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, that's true. You are bragging too much. That's right. You are still thinking about how to keep your company alive. Alas, if you become a pauper, I can only help you with half of your salary at most. I don't have any extra money. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, I'm relieved. At least if I go bankrupt, someone can still give me food. Chapter 502 Personnel Arrangements. The next day, a formal interview began. Compared with the previous recruitment, this interview seemed more formal. The company has been operating for a while, and it has already had some foundation, and it has a better eye for selecting personnel. In addition, the company's strength has increased dramatically, and the company has enough confidence to select others, without worrying that they will not come to the company. Su Weifeng, Lin Zhuangsun, and Sun Yumeng were interviewers. Zhao Xiaoshu and Liu Ying were responsible for arranging these interviews. Most of the people who came to the interview knew Liu Ying, and they all greeted Liu Ying secretly in private. Liu Ying had just arrived at the company and had not yet been given a fixed position. How could she dare to overstep her bounds? At most, she would tell people who had a very good relationship with her and ask them to perform well. There were more than 100 people who needed to be interviewed. Even if one person was interviewed every 3 minutes, there would only be 20 in an hour. The interview lasted a whole day, and then it was over. Su Weifeng and the others were a little dry in the mouth. However, Lin Zhuangsun, Sun Yumeng and others were still very happy, because the people who came this time were all professionally trained, and their level and ability were one level higher than those recruited before. Next, from the interviewed people, some of them will be selected to work directly, and then some students below junior year will be identified as the company's future talent reserve. This time, the company did not dare to be careless, and specially asked the Shu family to help find a good lawyer to formally draft several employment contracts. Lin Zhuangsun also felt that he thought too simply, just thinking that if he was good to employees, then the employees would work in the company with peace of mind. But in fact, all employees go to work, the first thing they pursue is personal interests, and then ideals and pursuits. If they only talk about feelings, there is really no binding force. Only a real contract in black and white can have the greatest binding force and make people feel responsible. Anyway, there are not many people in the company recently, and the director and main artists who shoot the video have been poached, so they can only do this job well first. Finally, it was determined that a total of more than 60 people were hired by the company. Then the positions in the company were adjusted. In the past, except for the two bosses, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangsun, other departments actually had no real positions. Even if there were managers, they were all poached. This time, the company was truly formalized, so many departments had to be assigned leaders. The old people who stayed in the company naturally could not be treated unfairly, and basically all of them were assigned positions, but Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan also emphasized that the current appointment did not mean forever, and if they were not competent, they would still be replaced. But for these people, it was already a good opportunity. It had not been long since they came to the company, and now they could get a promotion and a raise, and the motivation came all of a sudden. In fact, some people usually look very ordinary, but that was because they did not have the opportunity to display their talents. In addition, some people, after being motivated, would also burst out with potential that they did not have before. So Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan were not worried about their lack of ability. Then Sun Yumeng was the manager of the script group, and Zhao Xiaoshu was not assigned a position because she could not be in the company often. Zhao Xiaoshu did not care at all. Seeing that the company was good, she was already satisfied. In view of Li Yuang's recent performance, Lin Zhuangxuan and Su Weifeng discussed and gave her a position as deputy manager of the department in charge of artists, but the position of manager was vacant. If she did a good job, she would be promoted directly. This position is quite important. The most important personnel in the company are artists. Li Yuang's position is equivalent to managing most of the people in the company. This scared Li Yuang herself, and she didn't know how to express her emotions for a while. Li Yuang walked into her office. The office was not big and the layout inside was simple, but it was an independent space, which already reflected the difference in status between her and those people outside. Congratulations, Manager Liu. Zhao Xiaoshu followed in with a smile on his face. Xiaoshu, pinch me. Li Yuang grabbed Zhao Xiaoshu's hand directly. Zhao Xiaoshu chuckled and said, "What's the matter? I'm afraid it's a dream." Then he pinched Li Yuang's face lightly. Li Yuang nodded vigorously and said, "Yes, this is too unreal. This is a big company with an investment of hundreds of millions. I actually became a manager here. I never thought of it, especially many of the people I will work with in the future are my classmates. I suddenly became their manager, which makes me feel a little uncomfortable." Zhao Xiaoshu said with a serious face, "Do a good job. The company is just starting now, and everything has to start from scratch." Li Yuang took a deep breath and said, "Xiaoshu, don't worry, I will work hard. I will not let down the expectations of President Lin and President Su, nor will I let down this good opportunity you gave me." Zhao Xiaoshu smiled again and said, "Don't be so polite to me. Just work hard. If you don't understand, go to Brother Su and Sister Zhuangxuan to report." "Yeah." Li Yuang nodded and said, "Xiaoshu, why don't you have any position?" Zhao Xiaoshu said with a smile, "I'm a contracted writer and I don't have to come to work. There is no one in the company these days, so I came to help." "Then, you should also take up a position, otherwise, wouldn't it be a loss?" Li Yuang asked cautiously. Zhao Xiaoshu shook his head and said seriously, "Li Yuang, I know you are kind and considerate of me, but I really don't need this, and I definitely don't want to cause any trouble to Brother Su, so I don't care what you think, but from now on, you must think of me as Brother Su's sister." Li Yuang's heart tightened, and she nodded and said, "Yes, I will definitely pay attention." Zhao Xiaoshu smiled again and said, "I'm very happy now. It is a very happy thing to be able to be by the side of a person like Brother Su and to see him." Li Yuang didn't say anything more, but she was still a little puzzled in her heart. It is naturally a very happy thing for a woman to find a man she likes, but if this kind of love cannot be open and above board, this kind of love is humble and even unhealthy. Even though Su Weifeng is a strong and capable man, and does have a charming charisma, it will not be difficult for Zhao Xiaoshu to find a good man with her looks and talent. Chapter 503 Someone gave me a share. The online movie in the company is finally online. The response after the launch is also quite good. The number of clicks is very high, and the conversion rate of payment is not low. Although this online movie is not a big hit, it is also considered to be of upper middle level. Looking at such data, Lin Zhuangxuan is also quite satisfied. The first work she shot has such an effect, which is already quite good. And Lin Zhuangxuan and Sun Yumeng looked at their names on the subtitles, and there was another sense of accomplishment. Just as several people were happily looking at the data, Jin Yuhu, the annoying guy, came to Su Weifeng's company again. This guy broke into Su Weifeng's office directly, then sat on the sofa with a big horse and a golden knife, lit a cigar, blew a smoke ring, and looked complacent. Lin Zhuangxuan frowned and said, "You are not welcome here. Please leave immediately." Jin Yu laughed and said, "Boss Lin, I came to congratulate you. You don't have to keep me at a distance, right?" Lin Zhuangxuan sneered and said, "You came to congratulate? Haha, do you think this joke is funny?" Jin Yu laughed again and said proudly, "You are really wrong this time. The online movie you shot has such a good effect and the data is so good. I didn't sabotage it. Don't you feel puzzled?" Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, "You have to be able to stretch your hands that far. Besides, if a person only thinks about doing things that hurt others and benefit himself, who will cooperate with you?" Jin Yu raised his thumb and said, "Boss Lin is really knowledgeable, so this time, I will not do anything that hurts others and benefits myself, and I will also do something to help others. I helped you promote the movie, otherwise how could the data be so good?" Lin Zhuangxuan said disdainfully, "Would you be so kind? How is that impossible?" Jin Yu blew out a smoke ring and said proudly, "Don't forget, the actors involved in this film are basically in my company. This film has good effects and a great impact, so wouldn't their status be greatly enhanced?" Lin Zhuangxuan's face suddenly became extremely ugly. Jin Yu laughed and said, "I think when I poached them, you must have thought I was at a big loss, but I can tell you that I signed 5-year contracts with them, and they were long-term contracts with very little salary increase. It seems that the price signed a few days ago was quite high, but now it's already a great bargain. With just one movie, they can make back all the money I invested. By the way, I also want to tell you that I won't be as stupid as you and give them another chance to change jobs. If they want to change jobs, they will have to pay a sky-high compensation. They can't leave, even if they want to. They have to work for me for the next few years. Haha, you have spent so much effort, but in the end it's a bargain for me. It's so cool." Lin Zhuangxuan was so angry that veins popped on his forehead. He pointed at the door and shouted sharply, "Get out! Get out of here right now!" Jin Yu sat steadily on the sofa, took another puff of his cigar, and said, "Boss Lin, this is a win-win situation for us. I feel that this way of cooperation is really good. I don't have to do anything in the future. I just need to keep an eye on you. Whatever you do, I will take away the benefits directly." Su Weifeng held back Lin Zhuangxuan who was about to run away and said, "Jin Yu, people like you are really mean." Jin Yu chuckled and said, "Yeah, I just like being mean. If I have a trick, you can think of it. If I have a curse, you can recite it. If you have the ability, just bite me." Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and walked straight towards Jin Yu and said, "Many people have come to me before, showing off their status and martial arts like you do. Do you know how they all walked out?" Jin Yu's eyes also narrowed, with a cold light in his eyes, and said, "You said it all. They walked out." Su Weifeng said, "Yes, they did walk out, but they all left enough things for me. Do you want to try it too?" Jin Yu and Su Weifeng looked at each other for a few seconds, then suddenly stood up and said, "If you want to fight with me, this place is boring. Let's find a chance and fight on the ring." Su Weifeng said lightly, "If you want me to fight with you, first, get out of here now, and second, pay me the 100 million first. HMPH. Jin Yu snorted coldly, walked straight to the door, and said, "I will let you fight with me." After Jin Yu left, Lin Zhuangxuan said angrily, "Why didn't you deal with him this time?" In the past, Xuling's father and several other family members who came here to show off were dealt with by Su Weifeng, but this time Jin Yu bullied people like this, but Su Weifeng let him go. Su Weifeng sat down and said, "This is our home. If something is broken, we will suffer." "Oh, you mean, this guy is very strong?" Lin Zhuangxuan immediately grasped the point. Su Weifeng nodded and said, "This guy's really strong and smart. He chose to avoid us directly. His rudeness is just an illusion. This guy is very smart." Lin Zhuangxuan frowned and said, "But this guy is really annoying. I really want to beat him up." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Don't worry about this. Sooner or later, I will have a chance and I will deal with him well." Lin Zhuangxuan waved his fist and said, "We must beat him up. Not only beat him, but also destroy his company. This bastard actually robbed us of so many benefits." Su Weifeng comforted him and said, "This is also a matter of learning from failure. In addition, we have also gained a lot. The real production company is our company, and our company's name is still known. Don't forget that, when investors invest money to make movies, they don't go directly to find actors, but to find companies. I believe that many investors are now preparing money, and are ready to find us to continue making online movies." Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes and said, "Is this true? I don't have much confidence. It must be true, I can guarantee it." Several actors were taken away by Jin Yuhu. Although we suffered a little loss, in fact the biggest benefit is still in our company, so there is no need to worry at all. Lin Zhuangxuan nodded, a smile appeared on her face, and said, "Okay, I can think about it, but if it's not as you said, I will only ask you. That's inevitable." Su Weifeng laughed, hugged Lin Zhuangxuan directly, and kissed her lightly on the face. Chapter 504 Uncle. 3 days later, Su Weifeng had arrived at the airport in the provincial capital. He was going to Yulin City. Yulin City is the most developed place in the film and television culture industry besides Beijing. Many large film and television companies are located here, and there are also many related cultural industries. It can be said that there are the most film and television company owners here, and there are countless star agents. If you want to work in the film and television industry, this is definitely the best place after Beijing. As Su Weifeng said, the success of this online movie has indeed brought a lot of popularity to the company, and let this circle know that there is such a film and television company in Yangcheng. Knowing is knowing, but it is impossible to wait for others to give you money with a check, so Su Weifeng is still ready to come to Yulin City directly, and then contact several companies that have been contacted in advance to see if he can find investors to make more suitable movies. Su Weifeng has never liked to be special, especially on the plane. He hates sitting in the first class the most. People in the first class will enter the plane first and sit in the front row early. Then the rest of the passengers will walk through the first class, and everyone will have to take a look. This makes Su Weifeng, who doesn't like to be exposed in front of people, dislike the position even more. I bought an economy class seat, but when choosing a seat, I still chose the emergency exit. The seats there are much more spacious than ordinary seats, so that you can stretch your legs. It can be said that it is the most comfortable seat in the economy class. It will be boarding soon, and Su Weifeng will line up with everyone. Soon, Su Weifeng will come to the entrance. There is a light cry from behind, and then someone bumps into Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng turned his head, and saw that it was a girl in her 20s, who was trying to stand up in a panic. Su Weifeng reached out, and put his hand on her arm, to let her stand up. On the side, two people walked past the girl, a man and a woman, and were walking towards the entrance. The woman wore large sunglasses and a hat, almost covering her entire face, but her figure looked good. The man, who was also wearing a pair of sunglasses, stood by the woman, and stretched out his hand, to block the woman from the economy class. It was obvious that the girl was bumped by this man. The girl looked at the man with some annoyance at this time, and opened her mouth, but said nothing. Under normal circumstances, even if they walked through the first class aisle, they would not bump into the economy class side. But the man and the woman had to walk side by side, and there was only room for one person to pass through the entrance, so the man had to occupy the position on Su Weifeng's side. "Get out of the way." The man's arm bumped into Su Weifeng's arm, and he said these two words directly and stiffly. Su Weifeng was too lazy to argue with others, but that didn't mean he would indulge such people's bad habits. So he didn't move, as if he didn't hear the man talking. "Get out of the way, did you hear me? Don't block us from getting on the plane." This time, the man pushed Su Weifeng directly, and his tone was even more unfriendly. Su Weifeng tilted his head, and glanced at him, then said calmly, "I'm waiting to get on the plane too." The man's eyes were blocked by sunglasses, but from the changes in his skin and his tone, it was clear that he was speaking in a very tough tone. "We are in the first class, get out of the way." Su Weifeng raised his eyebrows and said, "I don't care about your first class." The man got even angrier, and his tone became even worse, saying, "Country bumpkin, do you know that first class passengers have the right to board the plane first?" Su Weifeng also shouted loudly, "You bought the first class from the airline, and you didn't pay me for the passage, so why should I give way to you?" Well said. The girl who was hit just now immediately screamed crisply. The people behind also cheered. It's not that everyone hates the rich. If you have money, you can buy a first class to enjoy it, but when you enjoy it, you can't harm the interests of others. People who rely on buying a first class and then pretend to be cool are simply extremely annoying. Boy, do you know this is? The man was furious. But when he said this, the woman next to him pulled him, frowned, and went straight to check her ticket, and entered the passage. The man snorted and said, "A bunch of stupid people with no vision." Then he checked his ticket, and entered the passage. Su Weifeng also entered the passage, after checking his boarding pass. Just after walking a short distance, he heard fast footsteps behind him. The girl who was hit just now caught up with him, walked side by side with him, and then said with a smile, "Thank you for what just now?" "Thank me for what?" Su Weifeng asked with a smile. The girl blinked and said playfully, "Thank you for helping me vent my anger. That guy just now was really annoying. When you scolded him, I also felt that the anger in my heart was relieved." Su Weifeng laughed. "Haha, I had an argument with someone and actually got the favor of a beautiful girl. This is an unexpected gain." Your words are quite interesting. Where are you going, uncle?" Su Weifeng raised the plane ticket in his hand and said, "I'm going to Yulin." "Is this plane going somewhere else?" "PFFT. Uncle, you are so funny." Then he said, "Going to Yulin does not necessarily mean staying in Yulin. Maybe you will transfer to another place." "What you said makes sense. I'm going to Yulin." The girl blinked and said more mischievously, "What a coincidence. I'm going to Yulin too." Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile. This girl is the same age as Sun Yumeng and Zhao Xiaoshu, but she has more youthful vitality than them and seems more carefree. The two of them boarded the plane. When they passed the first class cabin, the man with sunglasses glared at them. Su Weifeng just glanced at him lightly, and the little girl behind him glared at the man. With a man next to her, she inevitably became bolder. Su Weifeng quickly found his seat and stuffed his bag on the luggage rack. When he was about to sit down, he heard the girl's voice behind him. "Uncle, wait, please help me put my luggage first." Su Weifeng turned around and put her suitcase on the luggage rack. The girl grinned at Su Weifeng and sat down next to him. "You're here?" Su Weifeng sat down as well, looking at the girl in surprise. "Yeah? Isn't it okay?" The girl grinned at Su Weifeng with a small pointed canine tooth on the right. "Isn't it a coincidence? Uncle, I feel like we are so destined to be together." Chapter 505 Fate and Promise. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "It's fate indeed." Not long after, another lady in her 30s came over and sat in the innermost seat. The two of them gave up their seats and fastened their seat belts after sitting down. "Uncle, we are so destined to meet. Is it necessary for us to get to know each other?" The girl raised her phone and winked playfully. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "A beautiful girl took the initiative to ask for her contact information. If I don't give it to her, wouldn't that be too disrespectful?" The girl immediately raised her chin and said, "Hey, uncle, you think too much. I just said I wanted to get to know her name, and I didn't ask for her contact information. You really have a good self-image." Su Weifeng's smile stopped, and he said with a smile, "Then why did you raise your phone?" The girl said, "I was just making a gesture, and the phone happened to be in my hand." Su Weifeng's face turned dark, and he said, "Okay, then I really thought too much." The girl smiled again and said, "Let's get to know each other first. Maybe after chatting I will agree to let you add me." Su Weifeng snorted and said, "Forget it, I don't want to flirt with you. It would be so embarrassing if you tease me again." This time it was the girl's turn to widen her eyes, and she laughed out loud, saying, "PFFT, uncle, you are too direct. I'm a beautiful woman after all. I will be sad if you say that." Su Weifeng shrugged his shoulders and said, "I won't fall for the same trick for the second time." Okay, uncle, my name is Ning Yuling. What's your name?" She stretched out her hand to Su Weifeng. "Su Weifeng." Su Weifeng shook her hand gently and then immediately let go. At this time, the plane began to broadcast and the two of them stopped talking for the time being. When the plane was about to take off, the girl took out a box of chewing gum, poured out a piece, and handed it to Su Weifeng, saying, "Take one. It will prevent tinnitus during takeoff." Su Weifeng certainly would not have such symptoms, but the girl was kind enough to take it and throw it into her mouth. More than 20 minutes later, the plane began to fly steadily. The girl asked, "Uncle, what are you going to Yulin for?" Su Weifeng said, "I'm going to discuss some business." The girl raised her hand and waved it exaggeratedly, saying, "To discuss business? Is it the kind that involves a large amount of money, hundreds of millions at any time?" Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile, thought about it, and said, "It seems to be true." Ning Yuling gave Su Weifeng a thumbs up and said, "Uncle is so amazing. He is so young and so capable. He is simply the Prince Charming in the eyes of girls." Su Weifeng squinted his eyes and said, "Why doesn't this sound like a good thing to me?" Ning Yuling curled her lips and said, "You can still hear it. You men like to brag, as if you don't do a business worth hundreds of millions, you will be a failure. You make it seem like you have a net worth of hundreds of millions." Su Weifeng couldn't help but chuckled, and then deliberately said seriously, "I'm really going to do a business worth hundreds of millions." Ning Yuling curled her lips and said, "Damn, I told you you were fat, and you're out of breath. Humph, if you keep doing this, then let's not chat anymore. I don't like listening to people bragging." Su Weifeng shrugged and said, "Okay, then I'll just go meet a few friends and see if there's any chance to earn some pocket money." "That's better." Ning Yuling snorted. Su Weifeng said, "What are you going to do?" "Me. I'm going to realize my dream." Su Weifeng looked at Ning Yuling and said, "Dream? Want to be an actor?" Ning Yuling clenched her fists and said, "You guessed it right. Yes, I'm going to be an actor." Su Weifeng said, "If you want to be an actor, you don't have to go to Yulin. There are some development prospects in the provincial capital here." Ning Yuling shook her head and said, No, the development limitations here are too small. Besides, I'm studying nursing, not art. It's hard to get opportunities here in the province. I have to come to Yulin. The film and television city here should have more opportunities for development." Su Weifeng now knows a lot about film and television. In this era, the easiest way for young people to get ahead, and the most likely way to become famous overnight, is to develop in the entertainment industry. If they really get the opportunity, they may become stars all of a sudden. The income at that time is completely incomparable to other jobs. But what everyone sees is only the glorious side of those successful people, but there are still countless people struggling at the bottom and finally quit this industry in disgrace. Su Weifeng did not think of discouraging her enthusiasm and said, "Then I can only wish you success. I will definitely succeed." Ning Yuling grinned happily. Maybe Su Weifeng did not express any intention towards Ning Yuling. When chatting, he could talk about some things about film and television, and he and Ning Yuling could find common topics. The two of them were not lonely on the way. After eating the airplane meal, Ning Yuling took the initiative to raise her mobile phone and said, "Come on, add WeChat this time." Su Weifeng said, "There is no signal here. If there is no signal, you can write it down first, and then add it when there is a signal." After writing down the number, Ning Yuling got up and went to the bathroom. After a while, she came back, and Su Weifeng did not get up, so she wanted to squeeze through the gap in front of Su Weifeng's legs. Normally, the space here at the emergency exit is enough, but at this time the plane suddenly bumped. Ning Yuling fell down and sat on Su Weifeng's lap. Su Weifeng quickly helped her up. Ning Yuling also looked embarrassed and quickly moved over to sit down. "Haha, don't blame yourself. I won't blame you," Su Weifeng said directly. Ning Yuling's face suddenly turned black and said, "Uncle, you are too thick-skinned, aren't you?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, it's okay. But with such a joke, the embarrassment of the two was resolved. Su Weifeng said, "For the sake of your friendship, if you encounter any difficulties in work in the future, you can contact me through the contact information." Ning Yuling snorted and said, "What's the matter? Do you want to arrange some plays for me and then let me marry you?" "Ha, you think too much." Su Weifeng didn't say much. Meeting Ning Yuling and being in the same industry is a fate. In addition, this happy girl did bring happiness to the journey, and Su Weifeng didn't mind helping her. But the premise is that Su Weifeng will not take the initiative to help her. He has already said it. If she can think of asking him for help in the future, he will help her. If she doesn't remember, then forget it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506. The Star is Offended. After getting off the plane, Su Weifeng and Ning Yuling walked to the exit and saw a group of people coming up to surround a man and a woman. These two were the man and woman who had just sat in the first class cabin on the plane. Oh my god, such a big scene. Who are these people? Ning Yuling widened her eyes with curiosity. Su Weifeng thought for a while and said, maybe it's a celebrity, but I can't tell which one it is. The two followed not far behind. After the group of people surrounded the woman, they immediately surrounded the woman in the middle, looking like they were facing a great enemy. Then the man in sunglasses shouted, pay attention, don't let anyone disturb Miss Meng Liana. Don't let the fans get too close, protect Miss Meng Liana. Then there were two people in front holding cameras and taking pictures non-stop, just like a big star. But the scene seemed a little awkward. Except for these people who were shouting there were no crazy fans rushing over. Everyone looked at this group of people with a confused look on their faces. In today's society, there are definitely people who chase stars, and there are also many people who are crazy about stars. But they are definitely the most popular stars. If it is an ordinary star, there are actually no fans who are fanatically chasing after them. People nowadays have become more and more rational, and at most they regard seeing stars as a novelty. She is really a star. Ning Yuling's eyes lit up, but she immediately said with a strange look on her face, but why doesn't she have a fan club? Su Weifeng looked at this scene and was extremely embarrassed. He chuckled and said, Meng Liana, it seems that she is not famous. Maybe they think they are already popular, but in fact they are not, and their influence is not great. PFFT. Then this scene is really embarrassing. Ning Yuling's mouth twitched, and she tried hard not to laugh. Su Weifeng couldn't help laughing and said, yes, this is also improper operation. You should at least hire some people to pretend to be fans, so that it will be better. After watching the excitement for a while, Su Weifeng and Ning Yuling waved goodbye. This is a passerby on the journey of life. You may have a good chat during the trip, but after arriving at the destination, I'm afraid that there will be no more interactions. Meng Liana and her group went to the parking lot. They really attracted a lot of people's attention along the way, but everyone just looked at them. The frequency of celebrities appearing in Yulin Airport is very high, so people here, unless they are big name celebrities, ordinary celebrities really don't feel anything. Su Weifeng also walked in this direction. He didn't have anything urgent to do, so he just watched their performance from behind, which seemed to be quite interesting. When they arrived at the parking lot, the driver of the online car hailing service called and confirmed the waiting place with Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng walked to that place and unexpectedly walked with Meng Liana and her group again. Huh, it's you again. The man in sunglasses saw Su Weifeng, and his expression suddenly became strange. Su Weifeng smiled at this time, not to show any kindness to this guy, but to sympathize with him. I know, you must be our Lion Naz fan. The man in sunglasses suddenly clapped his hands and walked up to Su Weifeng excitedly. Me. Su Weifeng looked around to make sure that he was the only one here. He raised his finger and pointed at his nose. He was really a little amused. The man in sunglasses actually had a gentle smile on his face at this time and said, haha, don't be embarrassed. Our Miss Liana is a very humble star. Fans' requests are generally met. I, a fan. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched. Ha, since you are a fan, come here, I'll let Liana give you an autographed photo. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched again. This guy's reaction really made him a little puzzled, but he soon realized that this guy was obviously crazy about fans. Seeing that he had followed him all the way, he thought he was a fan. Now that he finally caught a fan, he naturally couldn't let him go easily. Meng Liana came over with an autographed photo, and the man in sunglasses said with a smile, Miss Liana, we can take a photo together. Are you excited? Are you excited? Su Weifeng quickly stepped back and said with a dark face, thank you, I'm just passing by. Meng Liana paused, and the man in sunglasses also froze, but immediately said with a smile, "Don't be embarrassed, this is such a good opportunity. Take a photo, and there is also Liana's autographed photo. Take it back to show your friends. It will definitely be very face saving." Su Weifeng looked at Meng Liana and the man in sunglasses who were not willing to give up until they achieved their goal, and he was shocked. He quickly stepped back 2 steps and said, "Sorry, I can't afford it." Then he turned around and ran away. Meng Liana and the man in sunglasses were both standing in the wind at this time. What was going on? It would be fine if she didn't have any fans, but now she took the initiative to take a photo with others and took the initiative to give them photos, and they actually ran away. And they ran so fast. Arsehole. This arsehole. Meng Liana felt like she had been hit by 10,000 critical hits and felt that she had been insulted the most. She felt extremely embarrassed in this scene today, but she had no outlet to vent her anger. Now, she suddenly directed all her anger at the man who ran away. "I'll remember you. I'll remember you. Sooner or later, I'll step on you and make you beg me madly. Beg me to sign for you. Beg me to take a photo with you." Meng Liana gritted her teeth, clenched her fists, and pierced her nails deeply into her palms, almost piercing them to bleed. After Su Weifeng dodged, he couldn't help but sneeze. He was really a little scared. He was almost caught as a fan. If this got out, it would be embarrassing for him to become a fan of a star that no one knew. But those guys seemed to be taking pictures just now. I don't know if they took pictures of my face. Don't let these guys Photoshop it for publicity. The phone rang. It was the driver calling. Su Weifeng asked the driver to park the car a little further forward. Then he rushed over and got into the car. After getting in, he hurriedly urged the driver to drive. The driver was a little confused. What was going on? It felt like this guy had escaped from the airport. He must not be a lawbreaker, right? Meng Liana happened to see Su Weifeng getting into the car. The anger that had not been suppressed just now was ignited again, and she felt like her chest was about to explode. "Arsehole, I must find you, and I must punish you." Chapter 507. The source of evil is here. Arriving at the hotel, Su Weifeng packed up briefly and was about to contact the investors he had arranged to meet this time when his cell phone rang. The phone number was unfamiliar and the location was Beijing. "Hello." Su Weifeng answered the phone and greeted politely. "Hello, are you Su Weifeng?" A majestic female voice came from the phone. "Yes, you are. I'm from the Public Security Bureau. Now I've found out that you are related to a murder case. You have 5 minutes to get to room 608. Su Weifeng's face darkened and he said, "Who are you? This joke is boring." The tone of the other party immediately lost its majesty, but became more naughty, saying, "Then guess who I am?" Su Weifeng recalled this voice in his mind, but he had never heard this voice before. "If you don't want to tell me, forget it." Su Weifeng hung up the phone directly after saying that. If others deliberately act mysterious to him, then if he asks, he will be fooled by the other party. Such a direct rejection will directly disrupt others' pace. Sure enough, not long after, the phone rang again, and the person on the other end said fiercely, "You little brat, I asked you to come over, but you dare not come over? Well, I will dig out the eyes of Meng Keqing right now." Su Weifeng's face darkened, and he said, "Then do whatever you want." The woman immediately screamed, "Ah, you don't even care about Meng Keqing's life or death." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "I say Teo, your deception skills are not high." "Ah. How do you know it's me?" The other side screamed loudly. Su Weifeng said unhappily, "Humph, who dares to dig out Meng Keqing's eyes? Only you have the courage." Okay, then come over. I'll wait for you in room 608. This is the hotel where I live. Su Weifeng frowned. Teo said proudly again, "Yes, what do you think?" Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment, but still got up and went over. Tao is Meng Keqing's friend. Just like her name, she is also very naughty, but she is a computer genius. When they met for the first time, Su Weifeng had already seen her naughty ability. She even tricked him into doing artificial respiration in front of Meng Keqing. It was really bold. I don't know why this girl came here, but even if Su Weifeng came for Meng Keqing, he had to go and see her. After knocking on the door, Tao's original voice came from inside. Come in, the door is not locked. Su Weifeng walked straight in, then closed the door casually, and said, you are not afraid of others coming in, and you don't even lock the door. Cao Cao leaned against the head of the bed, with a quilt covering her legs and a laptop on her legs. Looking at Su Weifeng with a smile, she said, I have already hacked into the surveillance system in this hotel. Everything is under my eyes. Su Weifeng shook his head and said with a bit of a smile, you are so capable, but you only use it in these places. Isn't this a waste of talent? Teo laughed and said, you don't understand this. Any ability is not really useful if it cannot be used in life and cannot make yourself more convenient. I'll learn hacking just to make myself more convenient. Su Weifeng sat on the chair beside the bed and said, why did you come here? What do you think? Teo blinked at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng looked at Teo, then frowned and said, you didn't come here just because I came here, did you? Ha. How could it be? Teo laughed. Su Weifeng's face suddenly turned black. From this look, it was clearly like this. This girl is really idle. What do you want to see me for? Teo smiled and said, I'm just bored. They both have things to do, so I came to play with you. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, I'm here to work, and I can't play with you. Just work, I'll work with you. Just don't let me get bored. Is this okay? Teo threw the computer aside, turned over and moved to Su Weifeng's side, knelt there, and said with a smile, I'll be your assistant. You can take me with you wherever you go. I may do it. Use the computer to handle various things. It's very fast, and I will never cause you any trouble. Teo was wearing a loose casual outfit, and when she knelt like this, the collar of her top was opened very wide. Su Weifeng's position was simply a great viewing point, especially the girl's breasts, which were simply the source of sin. Even though Su Weifeng was well informed and determined, he couldn't help but blush when he saw this scene. Hey, you actually peeked at me. How is it? Does it look good? Tao first shouted, then threw Su Weifeng a coquettish look and deliberately twisted her waist. Su Weifeng's eyes were almost blinded by the scenery inside. He quickly turned his head, coughed, and said, hey, you're a girl, can't you be reserved? Teo said with a smile, hey, why should I be reserved with you? You've already touched me. Su Weifeng felt a headache and said, if you do this again, I'll leave. Teo leaned forward, put her arm on Su Weifeng's shoulder, and said, oh, Sister Keking is not here. You don't have to do this. Don't worry, I won't tell her. Besides, even if I tell her, she won't mind. We discussed it that day, you know it. Su Weifeng tilted his head back and said, okay, it was just a joke. You sit down honestly, or I'll leave. Seeing that Su Weifeng didn't look like he was joking, Teo sat down on the edge of the bed, rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng, and said, you're so boring. I don't know why Keking fell in love with you. Su Weifeng finally breathed a sigh of relief. Teo, who possessed the source of evil, was indeed a bit overwhelming. It was boring in the first place, but you had to find me to play with. You found the wrong person. Teo tilted her head and looked at Su Weifeng. After thinking for a while, she said, since we are here now, the plan will not change. If it is not fun, I will leave. Su Weifeng said helplessly, okay, then I will go back first. I will call you when I go out to do something. Teo immediately jumped to the ground and said, do you want to get rid of me? I tell you, that is absolutely impossible. From now on, this girl will follow you all the time. You can't get rid of me. Su Weifeng's face turned black and he said, I have already said that I will call you when I go out. No, I'm your assistant now, not just your assistant at work, but also your assistant in life. So, from now on, I will be responsible for your life. I will go and see how your life arrangements are. As she spoke, she held the source of evil and walked towards the door arrogantly. Chapter 508 The Annoying Little Fairy. Arriving at Su Weifeng's door, Tao took out her room card and swiped it, and the door of Su Weifeng's room was opened. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, and then shook his head repeatedly. These electronic devices were simply vulnerable in front of a hacker like Tao. She directly hacked into the hotel system and copied the information of a door card. It was too easy. Tao entered the room, looked around, and said, you are missing too many things here. As a boss, You come out to discuss business without even a decent configuration. It's a matter of losing your status. What else do I lack? I feel that the preparations are almost done. Humph, what do you know as a careless man? You don't have to worry about these. I will arrange them for you. Tao Tao waved her little hand, as if everything was under control, and took out her mobile phone to operate. Su Weifeng didn't bother to pay attention to him, and took out his mobile phone, and sent a message to Meng Keqing. I was on a business trip in Yulin, and Tao Tao came here. Meng Keqing sent a text message quickly. She is just idle. No one can control where she goes, and you can't hide where you go. If it doesn't cause you trouble, just take her out for fun. Su Weifeng also knew this. In front of a hacker master, normal itineraries, such as booking tickets, would be too easy to find out, so he was not surprised at all when Tao Tao found him. But he still felt a little worried and said, I'm afraid I can't control her. This girl is just a donkey that goes with the flow. If you go along with her, she won't go against you. In addition, she is the typical strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. If she teases you, if you hide and hide, she will tease you more and more excessively. If you take the initiative, she will immediately become timid. You are not lying to me, are you? Su Weifeng was a little suspicious. Haha, who knows? Anyway, you can see what happens when the time comes. Anyway, it's okay if you do it to her. Just pay attention to contraception. Puff. Su Weifeng was speechless for a moment. I'm very busy here, so I won't chat with you anymore. Take care of yourself. Su Weifeng put away his phone and looked at Tao Tao, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed. He couldn't help but have a headache again. What are your plans for today? Tao Tao stretched out her index finger and pushed it on her face, then pouted her lips and said, do you think I'll look more handsome if I wear glasses and push my fingers like this? Su Weifeng originally thought her action was a little puzzling, but when he heard this, his face suddenly turned black and he said, since you don't have anything, why are you doing this? Tao Tao said seriously, I'll let you imagine it. I feel that as an assistant, you need a pair of glasses to appear more intelligent. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched and said, really? Yes, and you also need a pair of black stockings and a black suit with a wide neckline. Su Weifeng felt that this picture was so special. Said, wait, where did you see all this? Tao Tao smiled evilly and said, the white collar workers in the movies are like this. Su Weifeng almost hit his head on the ground and said with his eyes wide open, you want to be my assistant? Do you want to help me with my work, or do you want to come with me to make a movie? Tao Tao blinked and said, it's okay, there are no such costumes now. Otherwise, let's go for a little lolly version first. Su Weifeng's face turned black. Really, if I dress up and tie my hair, I will definitely be a baby-faced lolly, and won't my lolly capital be different? Su Weifeng quickly stretched out his hand to block Tao Tao, who was about to crawl towards him, glared at him, and shouted, stop it now. If you do this again, I will throw you out. Brother Weifeng, how can you treat others like this? Tao Tao pouted in grievance. Don't make trouble, I won't throw you away. How can I make trouble? As she spoke, Tao Tao actually stretched out her tongue and licked Su Weifeng's hand. Su Weifeng withdrew his hand, as if he was stung by a bee, and looked at Tao Tao with a twitching mouth. This guy is simply a little goblin, and the kind of little goblin who has practiced for thousands of years. Tao Tao, I suddenly feel that you learned hacking just to watch those little movies? Puff. Tao Tao actually laughed out loud, and the seductive look just now disappeared in an instant. Then she sat up with an excited look on her face, her eyes shining with excitement, and said, yes, you are really my confidant. Others think that I have some talent for computers. In fact, I just wanted to watch a small movie, but no one would let me. I was so angry that I had to find a way to watch it myself. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched violently and said, you are a girl, how can you be so interested in this kind of movie? I remember that boys are most interested in this kind of small movie, and girls are generally curious for a while, and then they don't like it anymore. Tao Tao smiled and said, I'm just curious, but this curiosity has continued. Su Weifeng's face turned dark, and he shook his head and said, "You girl, you are really innocent on the outside, but in your heart, you don't want to say that I'm a slut?" Teo blinked. "That's not the case. I just can't find any words to describe you." "Well, maybe it's a bad taste." Tao chuckled, then waved his hand and said, "Who cares what the taste is? Anyway, I'm interested in computers. In the past, no matter who got a new movie in the world, I could immediately download it from his computer. Now I don't play such low-end games." "Then what are you playing? High-end?" Su Weifeng's face twitched constantly. "That was still low-end. How high-end can this be? Now I monitor those film and television companies in real time. As long as they shoot it, I can know it immediately, and it's the kind without editing. I just made one. Do you want to watch it together?" "No." Su Weifeng refused quickly. Teo said nonchalantly, "What's there to be shy about? It's just a short movie, just something between men and women. Don't tell me you haven't seen it before, or you're still a virgin." Su Weifeng glared and said, "Do you think it's appropriate for a man and a woman to watch this kind of thing? What if something happens, and they can't control it? PFFT, haha." Teo suddenly pointed at Su Weifeng and laughed, and his laughter was so unscrupulous, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Chapter 509. 100 million is not enough. What are you laughing at? Su Weifeng made Teo laugh so hard that she felt a little creepy. Teo was out of breath from laughing, and she covered her stomach with her hands. You, haha. Just after saying the word you, she couldn't help laughing again, and she even fell on the bed and rolled back and forth laughing. Su Weifeng's face was full of black lines. Thinking about what he said, it seemed that there was nothing particularly funny. What was Teo's funny point? This was simply inexplicable. It seemed that the more he asked Teo, the more this girl laughed, and Su Weifeng simply sat aside and ignored her. Teo really stopped laughing soon, and then moved to the edge of the bed, looking at Su Weifeng with a smile, and said, "You really made me laugh to death." "Really?" Su Weifeng just glanced at her lightly, and then looked at his phone again. "Hey, are you angry?" Teo poked Su Weifeng with her finger. Su Weifeng still said calmly, "I'm not angry, but I have to wait until you laugh enough before I can talk." You really made me laugh. What era are we living in? This is the internet era. Who hasn't seen a lot of these short movies when they were very young? Don't you have any immunity? You actually said that you can't control yourself after watching these short movies. This is so funny. Su Weifeng squinted at Tao. This girl's mind is completely different from that of normal people, but it seems that there is no need to argue with her about this issue. Otherwise she will do another on-site experiment, which will be embarrassing. Shaking his head, Su Weifeng said, "I have an appointment with an investor tonight, and I have to get ready now." Tao tilted his head and said, "Oh, dinner? Not bad. Then let's go. It happens that I'm a little hungry. If someone invites you to dinner, there's no need to be polite." An hour later, Su Weifeng and Tao came to a very famous restaurant in Yulin City. It's not that Tao wasted time putting on makeup or something. Tao just put on some simple stuff, which didn't affect her natural appearance. It was just that the traffic jam was quite severe at this time. In addition to Su Weifeng and Tao, there were 4 other people attending the dinner, 3 men and 1 woman. Among these 3 men, Liu Chengyang was the person who contacted Su Weifeng. He was in his 30s, not tall, and a little thin. The other 2 men, both in their 20s, one was Sun Zhengfei and the other was Deng Yang. Both of them were typical second-generation rich people. Their families were very rich, and they spoke more flamboyantly. The other woman was Deng Yang's assistant. She was very beautiful, very good at dealing with people, and even better at talking. In the film and television industry, it is generally rare for a company to invest independently. The risk of film investment is very high. A film, at the very least, is an investment of tens of millions, and at the most, it is hundreds of millions, or even several hundred million. Whether a film can be a hit depends on various aspects besides the quality issue. Hundreds of movies are released nationwide each year, but only a few dozen of them can actually make big money, and some only make small profits. Most of them lose money, and some movies even lose money directly, which can bankrupt a company. Of course, the revenue from the movies that really make money can directly bring about a qualitative change in a company. So under the stimulation of such high profits, there are still countless people taking money and investing in it. But because the risk is too great, few companies will share the risk. Even if a company invests tens of millions of movies, it will find several companies to cooperate so that everyone can share the risk. Although Su Weifeng and his team are only starting with online movies now, Liu Chengliang and his team also want to find Su Weifeng to shoot online movies, but they are also doing this kind of risk sharing. When investing, they always find a few companions. After introducing each other, Liu Chengliang said with a smile, "Mr. Su, Sun Zhengfei and Deng Yang are the god of wealth." Sun Zhengfei laughed and said, "Brother Liu, what you said is a bit too much. We are all making money together. If you don't come up with good projects, we have nowhere to invest our money." Deng Yang also smiled and said, "We are all waiting for Mr. Su to make a fortune. Mr. Su, no matter what projects you do in the future, you must take us with you." Su Weifeng said with a smile, "You are too polite. Without the investment of you bosses, we can't do it ourselves." Tao Tao blinked and said, "How much money do you want to invest?" Liu Chengliang, Sun Zhengfei and Deng Yang were all stunned by the question. How could they ask how much money to invest just after meeting each other? Su Weifeng's face turned black. He secretly pulled Tao Tao's arm and said, "I've just hired this assistant. I'm not very good at talking. Please don't laugh at me." Tao Tao said nonchalantly, "Isn't it possible to ask about this? They just want to invest money, so let's ask how much they can invest. If they invest less, it's meaningless." Liu Chengliang's face turned black. He said, "Assistant Tao, how much do you think is too much?" Tao Tao tilted her head, touched her chin and said, "It must be more than 100 million. 100 million? Liu Chengliang shouted with his eyes wide open. Sun Zhengfei and Deng Yang's faces also turned ugly. Su Weifeng was speechless. He had told her a few words before coming here, asking her not to talk nonsense here. Who knew she would start talking nonsense as soon as she came? With a glare, Su Weifeng scolded, "Don't talk nonsense." Tao Tao said with a look of grievance, "I'm not talking nonsense." Sun Zhengfei's mouth twitched at this time and said, "Assistant Tao, you have a really big appetite. 100 million, isn't this too much?" Tao Tao widened his eyes and said, 100 million is too much? I think it's too little." Liu Chengliang suddenly laughed and said, "Boss Su, your vision is really too high. We can't afford to play with you." Deng Yang also laughed and said, "Yes, for a small family like us, it's already a big deal to play with 10 or 18 million. You asked for 100 million, we really can't afford it." Sun Zhengfei said even more impolitely, "It seems that we have different ideas and can't work together." Su Weifeng sighed secretly in his heart. It was meaningless to explain at this time. He had to stand up and said with a wry smile, "I'm really sorry, the cooperation failed today. We will have a chance in the future." Then he glared at Tao Tao and said, "Let's go." "Ah, we just got here. We haven't eaten yet." Tao Tao suddenly widened her eyes and shouted, "You still want to eat?" Su Weifeng's face turned green and he pulled Tao Tao up. Chapter 510 Deliberately Making Trouble. "What are you doing? Why are you leaving just like that? They invited us to dinner and we haven't eaten yet. That's so rude." After leaving the restaurant, Tao Tao pouted, looking dissatisfied. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched and he said, "You still know it's impolite. You just said that to others. Didn't you find it impolite?" Tao Tao said with a puzzled look, "No. What did I say?" Su Weifeng said angrily, "You said to let them invest 100 million each." Tao Tao said seriously, "Yes, at least they have to invest this much, otherwise why ask them to invest? If it's tens of millions, do you care? You don't care." Su Weifeng suddenly understood, his mouth twitched, and said, "In your concept, is 100 million also a small amount of money?" "Of course." Tao Tao nodded seriously and said, "When chatting with Kaking, she casually talked about tens of billions, and even tens of billions of dollars, euros and so on." Su Weifeng stroked his forehead and said, "My dear aunt, do you know that in our country, there are only a few people of Keking's level? Most people are ordinary people. Hundreds of thousands are huge sums for them. Millions are rich people. If there is tens of millions, they can be called rich people. We can make a big online movie. The maximum investment is only 18 million, and generally less than 5 million. If each company invests a few million, we can prepare several movies together. Tao Tao said with disdain. PFFT, that's just how much money it is. Do you need to find someone else? If you don't have it, I'll give it to you. Su Weifeng said unhappily. What do you know? In this industry, there are not many people who are self-funded. This is a kind of risk sharing. Seeing that Su Weifeng seemed really unhappy, Tao Tao said a little guilty. I'm sorry, I may be used to being with Keqing and the others, so I'm more arrogant. I will pay attention in the future, and won't make such mistakes again. Su Weifeng glared and said, there is still a future? Humph, I will fire you as an assistant now. Boss, give me another chance. I have admitted my mistake. Tao Tao hugged Su Weifeng's arms tightly, and shook them hard. Su Weifeng's face suddenly swelled red. The source of this girl's sin was really too lethal. The most important thing is that it was dinner time, and people were coming and going at the entrance of the restaurant, all staring at the two of them. Being hugged like this was not a big deal, but Teo's pitiful expression and her red eyes, that were about to cry, made it easy for people to think that she was bullied. He quickly said, okay, let me go quickly. Teo pouted and said, if you fire me, I won't let you go. You have to keep using me. Su Weifeng quickly said, okay, my little aunt, I won't fire you. Teo raised her chin and said, then I won't let you go either. People have apologized to you. You have to take me out for dinner. I'm starving. Su Weifeng had no choice but to say, okay, I'll take you out for dinner. Let's eat. For girls like Men Keqing and Teo, night markets and snack streets are their favorite places. Teo quickly found a snack street on the map on her phone, and then forced Su Weifeng to go there to eat. When they got there, seeing Teo enjoying the meal, Su Weifeng suddenly realized something. After giving Teo 2 more kebabs, he casually said, did you ruin my dinner, just to come to this snack street today? Yes, ha. Teo was about to agree, but immediately said with a smile, how could that be? How could I ruin your business? This is my first time doing this, so I didn't say it well. Su Weifeng snorted and glared at her unhappily. Teo smiled and brought the kebab she had just bitten to Su Weifeng's mouth, saying, come on, try it too. This kebab smells so good. Su Weifeng took a bite, and said as he ate, just this time, and it won't happen again. If you have any requests in the future, just tell me directly. If you try to be so clever with me again, I will definitely drive you away immediately. Yeah, I won't dare to do that again. Teo stuck out her tongue, seeming to feel a little guilty about her lie being exposed. However, this guilty feeling lasted only 3 seconds, and she immediately pointed at the snacks in another store and shouted, I want to eat this. I want to eat this. Su Weifeng couldn't help but stroke his forehead. This girl obviously didn't care at all. With this girl here, this trip to Yulin would be in vain. After all, the company here in Yulin doesn't know who Su Weifeng is, nor does it know how much background and strength Su Weifeng has in Yangcheng. They only recognize the ability and scale of Su Weifeng's company. So when talking about things, it's business. There is nothing to take advantage of. Tao Tao's way of making trouble is really hard to negotiate a deal. But Su Weifeng didn't care much. Girls like Tao Tao are playful. They will play for 2 days, and then it will be over. When he has had enough fun, he will talk to her again. For him, making money is just finding something to do. So he stopped blaming her, and followed him to the snack street. These people travel all over the country, but most of them are active abroad. In China, they are only active in a few limited cities. This is the first time Su Weifeng has come to Yulin. He has seen the prosperity of the motherland, and experienced the affluent life of the people. He immediately feels that it is quite good. Just like in this snack street, people come and go. There are many people in front of each stall, not only locals, but also many people from other cities, and even many foreigners. Taking the half-eaten food handed over by Teo, Su Weifeng said, why do you eat half of everything? Teo said, there are so many things here. If I eat everything, I will finish it quickly, and won't be able to try everything. Su Weifeng made Teo Teo laugh and said, such a long snack street, and you still want to eat in every store. Even if you eat a little at each store, you will be full to death. Teo Teo grinned and said, I'll remember where we ate today. We'll continue eating tomorrow. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, you are really something. Teo Teo shook his head proudly and said, the things I like most are, the first is eating, the second is playing, and the third is a computer. Su Weifeng subconsciously glanced at the source of sin, and couldn't help muttering, no wonder your body is so domineering. It turns out it's caused by eating. Teo Teo leaned in front of Su Weifeng, shook his head gently, and then said with a look of contempt, sure enough, men are all the same. They say nice things, but they are actually lustful in their bones. Chapter 511 A Real Foodie. Wait. Tao Tao suddenly tilted his head, pointed at Su Weifeng, and shouted in horror. Su Weifeng was startled and asked, what's wrong? Tao Tao pointed at the food in Su Weifeng's hand, and then pointed at himself. Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, what's the matter? Is this thing poisonous? Is it going to poison you to death? Teo Teo kicked him and said angrily, you are the one who is going to be poisoned to death. I'm immune to all poisons. If I have to be poisoned to death, it will be you. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes and said, then why are you shouting and making such a terrified expression? You. Teo Teo bit her lip and said, I just ate this thing, and you are still eating it. Did you eat my saliva? Ah, ugh. Su Weifeng immediately pretended to vomit, and said with a bitter face, are you disgusting? Do you want me to eat it? Disgusting. Teo Teo widened his eyes, then immediately gritted his teeth and said angrily, then I'll disgust you to death. Eat. You must eat it. Then he angrily ordered something from a store next to him, took a bite, deliberately licked it with his tongue, and handed it directly to Su Weifeng, saying, eat, eat. Eat a ghost. If you hadn't said it, I could still put up with eating it. Now not only do you say it out loud, but you also lick it with your tongue. Only a fool can eat it. After saying that, he threw the thing into the trash can without any hesitation. Oh my god, you actually threw it away. Teo Teo's eyes widened. Su Weifeng looked at Teo Teo with an expression, as if he was looking at an idiot, and said, so what? You don't think that, if you touch something with your mouth, and then give it to me, it's like I kissed you, and took advantage of you, right? Have you read too many novels? Teo Teo was stunned for a moment, then immediately curled his lips and said, of course not. Am I such a superficial person? Absolutely not. Su Weifeng said bluntly, that's it. Your way is definitely an insult to me. Although you are Keking's friend, if you do such a degrading thing again, I will turn against you. I know, I was just joking. Who told you to say it was disgusting? Teo Teo pouted, completely out of confidence. Forget it. For Keking's sake, I won't bother with you, but you gave me half of the food again, and be careful about the ones that are best not to eat. I know, you are really troublesome. Teo Teo rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng, and pulled Su Weifeng to go shopping at the next store. The two did not return to the hotel until after 11 o'clock. After getting off the car, Teo Teo could no longer straighten her back, holding her stomach and unable to move. Su Weifeng supported her arm and said, what's wrong with you? I think I ate a little too much. Burp. Teo Teo burped. Su Weifeng's face was dark, and he said, you deserve it for eating, when you can't eat. He helped Teo Teo to her room. Teo Teo lay on the bed, motionless, and said, it's over. I feel like I'm going to die from being stuffed. Will my stomach explode soon? Su Weifeng was really amused by her and said, okay, I'll help you to relieve it, and you can go to the toilet and poop some out later. Is this okay? Teo Teo looked at Su Weifeng in confusion. If you don't believe it, forget it. Zinxin, come quickly, it's really uncomfortable. Teo Teo shouted hurriedly. Su Weifeng went over and sat next to her, saying, I want to rub your belly, not to take advantage of you. Teo Teo said weakly, in this situation, you can take advantage of me, but you must not press me hard, otherwise I feel that my belly will explode directly. Su Weifeng laughed, so there is no need to worry about the intimacy between men and women. Oh, it's uncomfortable. Su Weifeng pressed on her, and Teo Teo hummed. Su Weifeng was also quite speechless, and said with a smile, I feel like, if I hadn't stopped you just now, would you have died of bloating? Teo said seriously. Maybe, I was eating happily at that time. Su Weifeng immediately frowned and said, you ate so much, your stomach must be uncomfortable, don't you know? When I was eating, how could I know? I felt that I could eat a pig. Su Weifeng laughed and said, you really make me not know what to say to you. It's a surprise that I didn't die of bloating before. Teo pouted and said, I rarely appeared in such places before, and usually someone reminded me, but you didn't remind me. Su Weifeng's face darkened and said, how did I know that you have this kind of special skill? Oh, my stomach hurts. I need to go to the toilet. Teo suddenly shouted. Then go quickly, you should be much better when you come back. Su Weifeng helped Teo up and took him directly to the bathroom. After people finish eating, the food will first be in the stomach and then into the small intestine little by little for digestion. Su Weifeng forced the food in his stomach into the small intestine and then into the large intestine, directly skipping the digestion process so that there is less food in the stomach and he will not feel bloated. Sure enough, after a while, Teo came out of the bathroom, rubbing her stomach, and said with a beaming face, it's really much more comfortable. But, you are very good. No wonder Sister Keking likes you. You are really good. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile, and said, you underestimate Keking's requirements. I don't care about other things, just this skill. I think it's worth it. Okay, since you are fine, I will go back to rest first. Teo gave Su Weifeng a charming wink and said, don't stay. I can do whatever you want, right? I can be a lolly or a queen. Su Weifeng said unhappily, I'm afraid that the food in your stomach will be squeezed out and make me sick to death. Get out. Teo grabbed a cushion and threw it at him. Su Weifeng reached out and grabbed it, then threw it back, knocking Tao onto his back and lying on the bed. The next morning, Su Weifeng woke up early before 6 o'clock as usual, went to the gym downstairs to exercise for an hour, and then returned to the room to take a shower. Just as he was washing his hair and running the water to rinse, he suddenly heard the sound of the door opening. Su Weifeng kept moving, but he immediately focused on opening the door. The door was pushed open very slowly, almost without any sound. If he hadn't heard that sound in advance and caught his attention, he would not have heard such a subtle sound at this time. How dare you break into my room without permission? Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes. To enter his room so cautiously, he must be either a thief or someone who has some intentions towards him, so there is no need to be polite. Chapter 512. Just a little mad dog. When the man finally walked in, Su Weifeng suddenly opened the bathroom door. In front of him was a short man wearing a sweatshirt, with the hood of the sweatshirt on his head and a mask with a ghost face on his face. This look confirmed that he had an intention. Su Weifeng shook the towel in his hand and directly wrapped it around the guy's head. Then he threw his hand again, and the man was thrown out and fell heavily on the wall. Ouch. With a scream, Su Weifeng suddenly felt something was wrong. This was clearly a woman's voice. He didn't use too much strength in this action. Anyone who knows a little kung fu should have reacted. But the other party didn't react at all. It was clearly an ordinary person. The most important thing is, this voice. Why does it sound like Tao Tao's? Tao? Su Weifeng hurried over and stretched out his hand to pull off the mask on her face. It must be Tao or someone else. How are you? Su Weifeng's face suddenly turned black. He didn't dare to help her up at this time. He had to find out if she had any bone injuries. It hurts so much. Teo screamed with her mouth wide open, and then screamed again, raised her hands to cover her face, and turned her head away. Su Weifeng looked down at himself, and also screamed, and quickly stood up, and wrapped himself with a bath towel. Go away, you big hooligan, rape, molestation, help. Teo screamed at the top of her lungs. Hey, don't scream. Su Weifeng's face turned black immediately. I don't know how good the sound insulation in this hotel is, but this kind of loud shouting is still easy for others to hear. Help, rape. But Teo still screamed at the top of her lungs. Su Weifeng was almost a little overwhelmed and suddenly remembered Meng Keking's words. He stretched out his hand and pinched Teo's chin and then said viciously, shut up. If you scream again, I will do you right away. Teo's scream stopped instantly. His eyes were full of panic, and there were even tears of grievance in his eyes. Now, do whatever I tell you to do. If you dare to displease me in any way, don't blame me for being rude to you. Just, Su Weifeng stretched out his hand and gestured, looking even more ferocious. Cao nodded again and again. Where does it hurt now? Su Weifeng snorted, and began to ask. It hurts everywhere. Cao answered cautiously, then shrank back, and squeezed into the corner. Su Weifeng immediately knew that she was fine. If she really hurt somewhere, she would have reacted accordingly at this time. Okay, get up, you are fine, you are really amazing. Coming to my room early in the morning like this, making me think you are a thief. Su Weifeng stood up, which also showed that it was just a misunderstanding, and went straight into the bathroom to take a shower. When he came out again, Cao was sitting on the sofa leaning against the wall, with his cheeks bulging so much that his face was about to turn into a ball. Su Weifeng laughed and said, "What's wrong? Are you still angry?" Teo suddenly stood up, and then rushed towards Su Weifeng with her teeth and claws bared. "Hey, what are you doing?" Su Weifeng grabbed Teo's wrists with both hands. But Teo was really ruthless. She tilted her head and bit Su Weifeng's arm. "You are born in the year of the dog." Su Weifeng dodged left and right, making it impossible for Teo to bite him. As long as Su Weifeng didn't let Teo bite him, Teo would not bite Su Weifeng, even if he bit him for a whole day. Teo was like a puppy at this time. Her little mouth was biting Su Weifeng desperately, and she looked like she would never give up. I can't bite. Seeing Teo like this, Su Weifeng felt it was interesting, and teased her on purpose. But after a while, Su Weifeng felt that something was wrong. Teo's face was getting redder and redder, and tears were actually gathering in her eyes. "Hey, I'm just joking with you, don't get angry," Su Weifeng reminded him quickly. But as soon as he said this, Teo suddenly cried out wow. Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he quickly let go of his hand. Teo fell directly on the bed, buried her face and burst into tears. Su Weifeng was completely at a loss. Teo looked like a 10-year-old girl who couldn't win a fight and started crying. Su Weifeng had never encountered such a situation before, so he didn't know how to comfort her for a while. But seeing that she was crying loudly, he couldn't keep doing this. After hesitating for a while, he put his arm to Teo's face and said, "Hey, don't cry. You just want to bite me. I'll let you bite me." Teo's crying immediately became a little quieter. Su Weifeng saw that there was a way, and hurriedly said, "Come on, I promise not to hide, and I promise to let you bite me." Tao's voice became a little softer again. She suddenly stood up, and hugged Su Weifeng's right arm directly, then opened her mouth and bit Su Weifeng's palm fiercely. Su Weifeng couldn't help but stare at him in astonishment. The girl's action was just like a ferocious little bitch, and the bite was really fierce. If it weren't for the use of true ki, I'm afraid he would have screamed. After enduring for a few seconds, Su Weifeng felt that the girl was biting harder and harder. He suddenly realized a problem and hurriedly shouted, "Let go, you're going to bite me to death." "No." Tao made a sound in her throat, and shook her head twice, as if she wanted to bite off a piece of meat from Su Weifeng's hand. But Su Weifeng could clearly feel that Tao's biting was not so hard. "Auntie, it hurts. If you bite me again, I'm going to cry. Let go, your flesh is about to be bitten off. Oh, I can't stand it. If you bite me again, I'm going to touch you." Amid Su Weifeng's pretended screams, Teo finally let go of her mouth. Then he glared at Su Weifeng fiercely and said, "See if you dare to bully me next time." Su Weifeng looked at the 2 rows of teeth marks on his right hand, and said with a smile, "I dare not provoke you. You are a dog, and you are a little mad dog. If you can't bite, you will bite hard." Teo blushed, obviously a little embarrassed, but still stiffened her neck and said, "You are a girl, shouldn't you give him to me?" Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, "Why should men give in to women, let alone such an unreasonable request?" Teo was speechless after Su Weifeng's rebuttal, but soon he straightened his chest and said, "But don't forget, I'm your lover. Sister King has agreed to this, and you have kissed me and touched me. Do you want to deny it?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513. You Have to Be Jealous. Su Weifeng found that it was totally impossible to reason with Tao. It was not that this girl was unreasonable, nor was she being unreasonable. She just caught one point. You kissed me, you touched me, but Sister King said I was your lover. Then Su Weifeng could do nothing with this girl. The most important thing was that this girl was really badly thrown down just now, and it was nothing big to let her vent. Tao's temper came quickly, and it went away even faster. She was gritting her teeth at Su Weifeng in the last second, and in the next second, she was already looking flattering. Brother Weifeng, have you arranged where to go today? I'm afraid you will run away and leave me behind, so I came to look after you. Otherwise, I wouldn't get up so early. Do you know how difficult it is for me to get up so early? Su Weifeng knocked Tao on the head and said, if you have anything to say, just tell me directly. You put a hat on your head and a mask on your face. If you don't look like this, would I come and beat you up? Tao pouted and said aggrievedly, I just wanted to scare you, but who knew you would come and beat me up? As soon as he finished speaking, Tao's aggrieved look instantly turned into expectation, and she said, okay, let's not talk about this. Let's talk about our arrangements for today. Su Weifeng suddenly had an epiphany in his mind. It was too easy to coax Tao. No matter how big the thing was, as long as he told her something that interested her, she would immediately forget the unpleasantness just now. I haven't arranged it yet, but I'll arrange a dinner party in the evening. Tao suddenly became more excited and said, does that mean you don't have anything to do in the morning and afternoon? Su Weifeng chuckled and said, tell me, what do you want to see me for? Tao smiled slyly and said, of course I want to go play. I saw on the internet that there is a glass bridge here, which is quite fun. There is also a very high bungee jumping there. I also want to try it. Su Weifeng deliberately hesitated for a moment and did not express his opinion. Tao immediately hugged Su Weifeng's arm, gently shaking it, and said, brother Weifeng, just agree to me. I'm your little lover. This action is already unbearable, and coupled with this delicate little voice, it really makes people's bones soft. Su Weifeng didn't know whether he deliberately teased Tao to make such a move, or if he got such a benefit unintentionally. Although it tasted good, he dared not enjoy it for a long time. Su Weifeng hurriedly said, okay, I didn't say I didn't agree to you. Oh yeah. Tao immediately shouted excitedly, then threw herself on Su Weifeng and kissed him on the face. Isn't this a little more beneficial to me? Su Weifeng touched the place that had just been kissed. Tao smiled and said, it's okay. I'm not your little lover. It's my duty. Su Weifeng was also a little amused. This girl took the initiative to harass Su Weifeng. She didn't mind the physical contact between the two, but if Su Weifeng took the initiative, it would be unacceptable. After packing up, the two went to the first floor of the hotel to have breakfast. While eating, Su Weifeng said, I'll rent a car. I saw that the distance is not far. It will take an hour and a half. Tao shook her head and said, driving is so boring. I have already signed up for a tour group. Su Weifeng looked at Tao in surprise. Yeah, I haven't joined a tour group yet. I feel like it would be fun for everyone to play together with so many people, right? Su Weifeng nodded and said, that's right, I don't have to drive, it's really convenient. Tao blinked and said, that's right, maybe I can have a romantic encounter? PFFT, you still want a romantic encounter? Su Weifeng almost spit out the food in his mouth. Tao said proudly, of course, how can I hang myself on your tree? I can't give up my large forest. Su Weifeng laughed and said, haha, then I wish you good luck in love. Tao said dissatisfiedly, hey, can you do it? You should be jealous, understand? If you are not jealous, how can I feel no sense of accomplishment? Okay, I'm jealous. If you dare to find a wild man, I will chop off his head and feed it to the dog. Yes, that's right. Humph, you should pay attention too. If you dare to hook up with any girl, I will dig out your eyes. Haha. Both of them laughed, causing the surrounding guests to look at them. Su Weifeng couldn't help but mutter in his heart that when he was with Cao Cao, he seemed to be a little abnormal. The group they joined was a small group of more than 20 people. Most of them were middle-aged people, even old people, and there were not many young people at all. But Cao Cao didn't seem to care about age at all. She was very familiar with many people in the car, and everyone liked this beautiful girl very much. Cao Cao is lively and active, and she seems to be very curious about everything. She is interested in the topics that the middle-aged and elderly people talk about, and she can talk to them. This instantly established her image of being humble and eager to learn in the minds of the middle-aged and elderly people. Coupled with her cute image, she is even more likable. After getting off the bus and arriving at the scenic spot, she quickly joined the group of middle-aged and elderly tourists taking photos. "Auntie, you look so beautiful with a scarf on. Can you lend me your scarf? I want to pose like this, too." "Okay, I have several scarves here. Which color do you want to pick?" "Wow, auntie, you are so well prepared. I really should learn from you." Su Weifeng almost burst out laughing. It was really a bit awkward for a little girl to pose with these aunties. After picking a scarf, Teo called Su Weifeng. "Brother Weifeng, please take a photo for me quickly. It must be beautiful." Su Weifeng held up his phone and said with a smile, "Okay, I'll take a photo for you." As a film and television company owner, Su Weifeng's photography skills have improved a lot. After seeing it, Teo was immediately very satisfied and showed off to the aunts. "Wow, little girl, your boyfriend's photography skills are amazing. Yes, this is really beautiful, and the angle is also quite professional." Teo said proudly. He runs a film and television company, so he just learned a little from the photographer. "Wow, this is even more amazing. Little girl, can you let your boyfriend take some photos for us?" Su Weifeng was about to stop him, but Teo had already patted his chest and agreed. Of course, no problem. Then, Su Weifeng became the exclusive photographer of the middle-aged and elderly aunts in this team. Chapter 514. This is a show of affection. Su Weifeng was exhausted from taking photos all the way. Finally, they arrived at the glass plank road above. There were many people here. Su Weifeng directly pulled Cao Cao onto the plank road first, getting rid of these middle-aged and elderly aunts. After running for a distance, Su Weifeng stopped and said with a smile, "Finally, we don't have to take photos of them." Cao Cao was stunned for a moment, then lowered his head and suddenly exclaimed. His legs softened, and he actually sat down on the ground. That baby face instantly lost all color. Su Weifeng immediately stared at Cao Cao with wide eyes and said, "Are you afraid of this?" Afraid. I won't go. Cao Cao stretched out her hand and hugged Su Weifeng's thigh, shaking her head vigorously with trembling. Su Weifeng couldn't help but laugh and said, "Since we are here, if you don't take a trip, it would be a waste of time. This thing is fine, and I'm here to protect you. Don't be afraid." No, I'm scared. I can't leave." Teo not only hugged Su Weifeng's legs tightly, but also put her face on Su Weifeng's legs after shouting this. Su Weifeng turned his head to look behind him, then looked in front of him, and said, "Hey, are you sure you want to go back? Go back. Teo was about to cry. "Okay, then we'll go back, but you can't play the bungee jumping in front." "What?" Teo raised his head immediately. "I said bungee jumping. Look, bungee jumping is not far ahead. As long as we cross this glass plank road, we can go and play. Then we must go." Teo actually jumped up and ran forward directly. But after running a few steps, his legs softened again, and he fell to the ground directly, like a puddle of mud. Su Weifeng quickly came to Teo's side and said with a smile, "What are you doing?" Teo hugged Su Weifeng's thigh again and said with a sad face, "Just now when I heard that we were going to play bungee jumping, I forgot about the bottom." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "What should we do now?" You carry me." Teo immediately came up with an idea. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes and said, "You are really good. Come here, I have to carry you." But he still squatted down. Now the people around him are already laughing non-stop. When more people gather, more people will laugh at Teo Teo. As Teo Teo's companion, he was also embarrassed. After carrying Teo Teo on his back, Su Weifeng's face suddenly became hot, and he said, I said, can you not hug my neck so tightly? Teo Teo said, no, I didn't use any force. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, you are a girl, let a man carry you, shouldn't you be more reserved? Teo Teo was stunned for a moment, suddenly twisted her body, and said, are you talking about this? Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, you know, why are you still moving around? Be reserved. Be reserved. Teo Teo's little mouth came close to Su Weifeng's ear and whispered, I'm your little lover, I'm yours, why should I be reserved? Su Weifeng's face became even darker, no, it should be red in the black, and he said, don't make trouble, you make me feel uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, what do you want? I agree to it. Teo Teo's little mouth actually bit Su Weifeng's earlobe gently. This guy's definitely a little goblin, and the kind of little goblin with strong magic power. Okay, that's what you said. Su Weifeng snorted, and his palm moved on Cao Cao's leg. His movements were not big, so even the people following behind could not see what he was doing. But Su Weifeng was not just moving his hands. The true energy in his hands surged out, found the acupuncture points on Cao Cao's legs, and slowly penetrated into them. The human thigh is very sensitive, and several acupuncture points on it are related to human emotional response. Su Weifeng's mastery of human acupuncture points is absolutely top notch, so this move is naturally very targeted. Cao Cao soon felt that special taste, and his face turned red all of a sudden. He let out a low cry of fear and hurriedly whispered, don't move. It's okay, I'm very careful with my movements, others will definitely not see it, don't worry, just enjoy it. Ah, I was wrong, I won't tease you anymore, don't move, if you move again, I will scream. Su Weifeng stopped playing tricks, and Cao Cao lay on Su Weifeng's back, motionless. Hey, why don't you get up? Su Weifeng reminded her. Wait a minute. Teo Teo's voice was soft and crisp. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched. Could it be that this girl was overly sensitive just now and hasn't recovered yet? Sure enough, after waiting for a while, Teo Teo slowly supported her arms, and the contact with him was finally not so serious. Neither of them spoke anymore, and they were a little embarrassed. The bungee jumping place is actually in the middle of the glass bridge. In the middle of the bridge, there is another platform that extends out as a bungee jumping site. There were a few people waiting for bungee jumping there, and they couldn't help laughing when they saw Su Weifeng and Teo Teo coming in this way. Especially a girl with blonde hair and several earrings on her ears, curled her lips and said, oh my god, you are so scared to walk on a glass bridge, and you still want to play bungee jumping? Cao Cao was immediately dissatisfied when she heard this. She straightened her neck and said, what do you know? We are showing our love, don't you understand? My boyfriend is willing to carry me on his back. The girl curled her lips again and said, if you are scared, you are scared. Why are you pretending? Come on, if you are brave, then come down and walk a few steps. The girl's boyfriend also smiled and said, yes, walk a few steps. If you have nothing to do, walk a few steps. Go, blind your dog eyes. Cao Cao jumped off Su Weifeng's back angrily. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched. This Cao Cao, with such little temper, can't stand any loss or excitement. This platform is also made of tempered glass, and you can see the bottom at a glance. Can she really do it? Sure enough, after Cao Cao went down, her eyes subconsciously looked down, and then her legs began to shake. Su Weifeng's face darkened, so he had to go over and hug her waist, lowering his voice and saying, just don't look down. Cao Cao immediately hugged Su Weifeng, but she felt that this kind of hug would make people see that she was scared. The girl's mind was so quick, she stood on tiptoes and kissed Su Weifeng on the face, and then said to the couple arrogantly, see, we are just showing our affection. If you don't understand affection, don't talk nonsense there. Chapter 515, Timid but hard-mouthed. Cao Cao's reaction finally made the others stop laughing. But Su Weifeng was laughing in his heart. The girl was almost completely hugged by his arms, and her feet were almost off the ground. If he let go, the girl would definitely fall to the ground. The funniest thing was Cao Cao's expression. The smile on her face seemed to be frozen on her face. It was so fake. At this time, a girl in front was hesitant and didn't dare to jump. She kept screaming while holding the railing. In the end, she was pushed down by the staff. Tao Tao's face turned pale when she saw it from behind, and she held Su Weifeng's arms tightly with both hands. It was the turn of the couple who laughed at Tao Tao just now. Don't look at these two people who were still there smugly laughing at this and that. But when it was really their turn, the girl was directly scared. She grabbed her boyfriend and screamed, and didn't dare to come forward. Tao Tao finally caught them, and raised his chin, saying, "Hey, why don't you jump? If you don't have the courage to jump, what are you doing here? Won't you waste other people's time?" The woman was scared, and when she heard Tao Tao say this, she immediately turned her head and said, "If you dare to jump, then I'll let you jump first." Tao Tao immediately straightened his chest and said, "I'll jump, you guys get out of the way." The two men quickly made way for Su Weifeng and Tao Tao to move to the front. "What should I do? I don't dare to jump," Tao Tao whispered in Su Weifeng's ear. Su Weifeng had guessed it long ago and couldn't help laughing at this time. "Then I'll just push you down." "No, no." Tao Tao immediately shook her head like a rattle, saying, "That's absolutely not possible. It will scare me to death." Su Weifeng shrugged his shoulders and said, "Then don't jump. It's not okay not to jump. If we don't jump, the couple just now will laugh at us to death. I absolutely can't let anyone laugh at us." At this time, the staff looked at the two people hugging each other and didn't let go and smiled and said, "You two, do you want to jump together? Can we jump together?" Tao Tao asked in surprise. The staff smiled and said, "Of course, we have opened a double jump for couples here, and it is absolutely safe, but the price is a little more expensive. Do you want to try it? Usually, there are many couples, but it is rare to see couples like this, not separated for a moment." Tao nodded her head like a chicken, said hurriedly, "What's the money? Let's do it together. We love each other so much, how can we be separated? Don't you think so, dear?" Su Weifeng had to smile and said, "Okay, let's do it together." The staff came over and put equipment on the two of them. They tied them together tightly from the waist down, and they were facing each other. This way, not only the waist down, but basically from the neck down, they were all tightly pressed together. If they were real lovers, it would be fine. But Su Weifeng and Tao were not like that, especially Tao. Don't look at her saying, "I'm your little lover on the left, and I'll do whatever you want on the right." But at this time, facing Su Weifeng, in this posture, her face couldn't help but blush. But, it wasn't entirely because of shyness, but because she was holding it in. The source of her sin was pressed so tightly at this time, and a strong sense of oppression made her feel a little difficult to breathe. "Can you loosen it a little?" Tao looked at the staff eagerly. The staff member glanced at Su Weifeng with envy and said, "There's nothing we can do about it, buddy, you're so lucky." Su Weifeng could only laugh dryly. At this moment, he was enjoying it very much, but the more he enjoyed it, the more uncomfortable it was. If it was Len Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan, or Meng Keqing, he could enjoy it without any worries. Even Zhao Xiaoshu and Sun Yumeng could enjoy it to their heart's content at this moment. But this was Tao. This girl looked naughty and cute, but in fact, she was definitely not someone to be trifled with, especially because of her background. Su Weifeng was really afraid of her. "You two, go here," the staff member reminded Su Weifeng and Tao. The two of them were standing 2 meters away from the steps to jump down. Normally, it would only take 3 or 4 steps to get there, but since they were tied up, they had to move over there in small steps. As they moved, their bodies suddenly rubbed against each other. Su Weifeng suddenly felt overwhelmed, and Tao's face turned redder, and both of them subconsciously stopped. "Don't dawdle, both of you," the staff member reminded him. The little yellow-haired girl immediately sneered at the sight and said, "Two people are dancing together. Why are you still not brave enough? You just said that to me." Tao immediately glared and said, "Who said I'm not brave enough? I'm just a little uncomfortable with being tied up like this." As she said that, Tao moved to the side again. Su Weifeng had no choice but to move to the side with her. The feeling was something that could only be understood but not described. Tao's face was getting redder and redder, and she obviously felt this strangeness. The staff member also joked at this time. This is definitely the best way for couples to enhance their feelings. How about it? Are we right? This made Su Weifeng and Teo Teo even more embarrassed. Teo Teo simply buried her face in Su Weifeng's shoulder. Oh, she was not embarrassed, but she was already at the edge, and she was scared and dared not look. The staff member explained the key points again and said, "You can start now." Ah. No. Tao Tao screamed out loud. But as she screamed, Su Weifeng had already kicked the ground and jumped out with Tao Tao. Oh my god. The staff and other tourists all exclaimed. Most people who bungee jump, even if they are very brave, just jump forward. But Su Weifeng actually jumped more than 2 meters forward at this time, which looked very handsome and stylish. Even the yellow-haired girl who had been laughing at her just now screamed excitedly. Ah. But Tao Tao's scream was extremely shrill, completely destroying this handsomeness. Su Weifeng had never thought that a woman's scream would have such penetrating power, and his eardrums seemed to be pierced. Even Su Weifeng was overwhelmed at this time. Looking at the culprit who made the sound, Su Weifeng stuck his head out and blocked it with his mouth. He could feel Teo Teo's voice rushing into his mouth and going down his trachea to burst his lungs. The destructive power was so great. Chapter 516 Strange Tao Tao. Teo Teo's voice finally stopped, and her big eyes stared at Su Weifeng blankly, with a look of panic and helplessness in them. But this expression only lasted for a moment, and the two bodies had reached the lowest point. The weightlessness of falling down actually doesn't make people feel too much, but after reaching the lowest point, a pulling force is about to throw people up again. This feeling is extremely strong. Teo Teo instantly ignored the fact that she was kissed and screamed again, but the sound was still held in her mouth. That feeling also made her extremely uncomfortable, and she couldn't help but move. Su Weifeng didn't want to be hurt by her voice again, so he hugged Teo Teo's head with both hands and then kissed her tightly, just to prevent her from making that kind of sound. This seemed to have a completely good effect. Teo Teo quickly stopped struggling and seemed to no longer want to scream. But Su Weifeng didn't dare to be careless and still blocked her mouth. After repeating this several times, Su Weifeng felt that Teo Teo's face was getting redder and redder, and she was holding his arms more and more tightly. When Teo Teo was lifted up again after falling down, she suddenly screamed again. This time, the scream was not loud, but it was quite persistent. Teo Teo stopped moving until the two finally stopped steadily. Su Weifeng then let go of Teo Teo's mouth and said, "I didn't mean to kiss you. Your scream was so harsh that it almost killed me." Well, Teo Teo just responded like a kitten, tilted her head, buried her face in Su Weifeng's face, and didn't look at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng also felt a little embarrassed. Seeing that Teo Teo didn't say anything, he shut up. As long as she didn't make a fuss, he was satisfied. There was a river below. The two landed on the boat. After untying the rope, Teo Teo sat directly on the bow of the boat, lowered her head, and didn't know what she was thinking. Su Weifeng opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't say anything. He felt that it was better to remain silent at this time. They soon reached the shore and the two got on the shore. From here, they had to go around a road on the cliff to meet up with the tour group. The path was quite steep and not easy to walk on, so Su Weifeng reached out and held Teo Teo's hand. Teo Teo let Su Weifeng hold her hand, still so quiet, but her walking posture was a little awkward. This made Su Weifeng a little worried. This girl reacted so abnormally. Could it be because of his kiss? Teo Teo, your walk is unnatural. Are you injured somewhere? No, absolutely not. Teo Teo was like a cat's tail being stepped on, and immediately straightened her chest and raised her head, shouting aggressively, "You." Su Weifeng was startled. Teo Teo shook off Su Weifeng's hand and strode forward. As she walked, she shouted loudly, "Look at what's unnatural about me. You are unnatural. Your whole family is unnatural." Su Weifeng was dumbfounded. He didn't say anything, so how could this be like poking a hornet's nest? Tao Tao snorted, then raised his chin and said, "Let's go. What are you daydreaming about?" Su Weifeng followed Tao Tao, looked at her, and said casually, "I forgot to remind you, just now that you can't take her boat. Look, your pants are wet." "What? You can see it?" Tao Tao turned around, covered her back with her hands, and looked at Su Weifeng with a flushed face. Yeah, it's such a big patch, how can I not see it? Su Weifeng was a little puzzled by Cao Cao's reaction, and said, it's wet, just cover it up, I won't laugh at you. As he said that, Su Weifeng took off his coat and jacket, and handed it to Cao Cao. You mean, my pants were wet on the boat? Cao Cao took it quickly, tied the clothes around his waist, and asked casually. Su Weifeng also said casually, yes, and there is no place to get wet. Cao Cao suddenly became excited, and said with a beaming face, ha. That's right, their service is too bad. They didn't even clean up the boat properly. I must complain to them later. Su Weifeng made Cao Cao confused. When he wanted to complain about others, he would be very angry, but looking at Cao Cao's appearance, she didn't look angry at all. Her excitement now was really inexplicable, and even seemed to be relieved. Relieved. Su Weifeng muttered in his heart, what was this girl worried about? Oh, it must be that she was constantly violated by him when bungee jumping just now. Thinking of what Meng Keqing said, this girl is fierce in words, but timid in real life. So she was timid just now, and now she has finally returned to normal. But it seems that something is wrong, and it doesn't seem to be the case. But Su Weifeng was too lazy to dig into the root of the matter. As long as Cao Cao doesn't cause trouble for him, everything will be fine. There were few people here, and there were no people in front or behind the two of them until they turned another corner. Cao Cao walked straight over, but Su Weifeng suddenly grabbed her. What's wrong? Cao Cao turned around and saw Su Weifeng's face was a little solemn and immediately asked in confusion. Look over there. Su Weifeng leaned close to Cao Cao's ear and pointed at a stone sticking out from the corner. Hey, there's a girl over there. Cao Cao also lowered her voice. It's so dangerous there. There's no guardrail. Is she going to commit suicide? Cao Cao mentioned suicide, and her emotions instinctively became nervous, and her voice suddenly became louder. The girl over there suddenly turned her head, looked at Su Weifeng and Cao Cao, and suddenly rushed forward, and actually jumped down. Ah! Cao Cao screamed immediately. But before she screamed, her eyes blurred, and then she found that Su Weifeng was not beside her. In the blink of an eye, Su Weifeng had actually appeared where the woman had just stood, and jumped down directly. Ah! Cao Cao screamed again. This time, it was like a scream that pierced the sky when she was bungee jumping. After screaming, she rushed to the guardrail and wanted to climb over to have a look. Don't come over, I'm fine. Su Weifeng's voice came from the bottom of the cliff, and the voice seemed to be some distance away from her. But this has made Cao Cao calm down. She first breathed a sigh of relief, and then hurriedly shouted, how is it? Don't scare me. It's troublesome for me to go up, so I'll go around and go down from the other side. The girl is fine too. Just don't yell, it's really too harsh. Okay, then I'll wait for you here. Yeah. After Su Weifeng agreed, he looked at the small tree in his hand that stretched out from the cliff. The roots were being pulled out little by little. Then he looked at the bare cliff below and the distance of 50 or 60 meters from the ground. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. It's not that he's fine, but it seems that things are quite troublesome. Chapter 517, Saving a Beauty. Su Weifeng no longer paid attention to Cao Cao and looked carefully at the situation around him. Let me go, I want to die. The girl said this lightly at this time. Her voice was cold and seemed to have no emotion at all. Su Weifeng looked down at the girl, and the girl's eyes were also looking at him, but the eyes were as cold as her voice, and they were also straight and lifeless. This made Su Weifeng frown. From the voice and eyes of this woman, he could actually feel that this woman seemed to have no attachment to this world, and her determination to die was also extremely firm. Su Weifeng said lightly, knowing that you want to die so much, I really shouldn't have saved you just now. Oh. The woman was stunned for a moment. Su Weifeng did not persuade her and said such a cold word, which must have been beyond her expectations. Su Weifeng added, but I never like to give up halfway. I have at least reached out, and I have to at least earn a reputation for being a righteous man. Otherwise, I will have taken this risk in vain. So please cooperate with me, and let me rescue you this time. After I have earned a reputation and some bonus, you can die on your own. Heh. What a boring way of persuading. The woman sneered and stopped talking. Su Weifeng also had a headache. It was amazing that such a person who wanted to die could still keep such a clear mind. But he didn't have time to care about her now. The roots of the small tree he was holding were about to be completely pulled out of the cliff. His right foot finally found a protruding position, and then he kicked hard, and his body instantly moved sideways for more than a meter. His empty hand suddenly grabbed a relatively protruding stone. Although the landing point under his feet was a little difficult, he could finally slow down. When Su Weifeng jumped down just now, he first grabbed the woman, and then controlled his own falling trend. So it was really dangerous, and it was very exhausting in the end. This is only him. Even if it was replaced by an ordinary master, I'm afraid that he would not be able to control his body just now. At this time, he can finally breathe a sigh of relief, and relieve the pain in his arm. Looking around, Su Weifeng took a breath, then jumped to the side, stepped on the stone wall, and quickly jumped forward again. He was like a monkey, and a monkey with a little monkey, climbing on the cliff nimbly, and rushing down quickly. Fortunately, his position was quite hidden, and the tourists on the bridge above could not see this angle at all. Otherwise countless people would have set up cameras to take pictures. You spent so much effort to save me, but I still have to die later. Do you think it's worth it? At this time, the woman actually spoke again. Su Weifeng kept moving his hands and feet, saying, I said, if you didn't die in front of me, I couldn't do anything about it, but if you died in front of me, I couldn't convince myself. Haha, why bother? Death is a kind of relief for me. You saved me, but it just made me suffer for a few more days in this world. Su Weifeng said lightly, suffering? I think you must have hallucinations in your head, and you are driving yourself crazy, right? How do you know? The woman screamed. Su Weifeng stopped, took a short break, and said, it's very simple. I can feel a special breath in your body. This breath is not your own, and its function is to do whatever it wants in your mind every day. Can you cure me? The woman's arms had been hanging by her side, but she suddenly grabbed Su Weifeng's arms at this moment, and her expressionless face suddenly became excited and fanatical. Su Weifeng said lightly, if you don't want to die, I should be able to cure it. You don't lie to me. I have experienced hope again and again, but every time I was given despair. I don't want to experience hope again, and then still feel that deep despair. Su Weifeng looked down at her and said, to be honest, you should have been sick for a long time. That kind of breath has been mixed with your own breath. It will not be solved overnight. It will take at least more than a month. The woman hurriedly said, as long as it can be cured, no matter how long it takes. Okay, but I definitely can't cure it now. Let's go down safely first. Okay, then I hold you, so you should save some energy, right? Su Weifeng shook his head and said, haha, you still know how difficult it was for me just now. The woman said apologetically, I'm so sorry, I've caused you trouble. It's really this kind of illusion that has tortured me for 3 years. I've completely collapsed. After a few minutes, Su Weifeng finally brought the woman to a safe place. Su Weifeng let go of the woman. The woman took a step back, then bowed deeply to Su Weifeng, then raised her head, clenched her fists. Her eyes were red, and she choked and said, please save me, sir. Su Weifeng looked at the woman carefully at this time. No. It should be said that it was a girl. Judging from her appearance, she should be in her 20s. Although she looked pale and haggard, it could not hide her beautiful face. If she was completely healthy, she would definitely be a very beautiful girl. In addition, when the girl spoke, she obviously had the temperament of a lady from a noble family, which meant that her family background must be quite good. Since I met you, this is also our fate, and I'm also quite interested in the breath in your body. I will definitely save you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The girl saluted again and again. Su Weifeng said, don't be so polite. My name is Su Weifeng. You can just call me by my name. Okay, then I'll call you Brother Su. By the way, my name is Yushan. Su Weifeng smiled and said, it's a very poetic name. Thank you for the compliment, Brother Su. As for my illness, Su Weifeng said, let's talk about your illness when we get back. My companion is still waiting for me. I'll go pick her up first. The girl immediately said apologetically, I'm so sorry. I was in a hurry. Your companion must be worried about you jumping down like this. I'm so sorry. Su Weifeng called Teo directly, and Teo's voice sounded not far above. I saw you from above. I'll be here soon. Within 2 minutes, Teo had already run over, panting, and the source of sin was shaking, which was simply dizzying. Chapter 518 Dependence. You really scared me to death. Tao came over and hugged Su Weifeng. This was absolutely true and sincere, which touched Su Weifeng. He patted her on the back and said, I'm not stupid. How could I jump in without confidence? Humph, you should have told me in advance. Otherwise, if you fell to your death, I would have thought you were missing, and there would be no way to collect your body. Su Weifeng's face suddenly turned black. This girl, can't she talk properly? The emotion just now was instantly wiped out by her words. Tao had just said a few words, and hadn't spoken to Yixian yet, and 3 people were running over. Tao's face suddenly changed, but soon turned into a happy expression. Are they your family members? Su Weifeng asked. Yixian nodded and said, I wanted to die, so I didn't want to see them. Now I don't want to die anymore. I'm very happy to see them. Brother Su, can you come with me to my house? Su Weifeng looked at the 3 people and said, then don't tell me that I cured you. Just say that I saved you and invited me to your house out of gratitude. What do you mean? Yixian's face changed, and there was a questioning look in her eyes. Su Weifeng nodded and said, to be honest, anyone around you could be the one. Then I understand. Yixian bit her lip and said, the hospital has diagnosed me with severe depression. I'm showing a special dependence on you now. What do you think, brother Su? Su Weifeng nodded and said, that's fine. Teo was a little confused and said, what are you talking about? Why are you playing dumb? Su Weifeng leaned close to Teo's ear and said briefly. Tao's eyes lit up and said, this is fun. Count me in. Su Weifeng's face turned black and he said, then just don't do anything bad. How could that be? Normally, I would just mess with you on purpose. How could I mess with this kind of thing? I will definitely cooperate with you. The few people looked at the distance, but the mountain road was rugged. They circled for a few minutes before they arrived in front of Su Weifeng and his group. Miss. The 3 people greeted and then looked at Su Weifeng with vigilance. Yixian put on that cold face again, grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and said nothing. One of them said in a deep voice, Miss, you have been out for a long time. Please come home with us. Yixian still grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and said nothing. Su Weifeng then said, ladies and gentlemen, she almost fell off the mountain just now and was a little frightened. The 3 people were all shocked. They looked at Yixian carefully and found that she was not hurt. They were slightly relieved. The leader said, did this gentleman save our lady? I can't say I saved her. I just pulled her over. But, what's her situation now? She has been holding on to me. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and continued, my girlfriend is not happy. She thought I had something to do with your lady before. Teo immediately cooperated by glaring and pouting her little mouth, looking sour. The leader frowned and said, sir, our lady has some problems with her brain. Please don't mind. Since you saved our lady, please come to our house and we will reward you generously. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, forget it. It's just a matter of convenience. Yixian shook Su Weifeng's arm vigorously, with a look of desire in her eyes. The man immediately said, our young lady also has this intention. Please agree to it, sir. The young lady must have been frightened just now, and is quite attached to you. If you leave now, I'm afraid that the young lady will be stimulated. This, okay. Su Weifeng had no choice but to agree. More than half an hour later, Su Weifeng and his friends walked out of the scenic area and got on a business car. This time, Tao and Su Weifeng sat in the front row, while Yixian sat in the back row with another man. However, Yixian's eyes were always fixed on Su Weifeng, with her hands on the back of the chair, and she also slightly grasped Su Weifeng's collar. Su Weifeng didn't know whether Yixian was acting or really like this. Perhaps it was both. The man sitting in the back also tentatively asked some information about Su Weifeng along the way. Su Weifeng also said it happily. There was nothing to hide. As for the company he is in now, although it is also considered to have assets of 200 million, it is obvious that Xian's family has a very strong background and doesn't take it too seriously. Soon the car drove into the mountains and finally stopped in front of a large iron gate. The iron gate opened quickly, and the car looked inside again. This was a particularly luxurious manor. The car drove for a few minutes before it stopped in front of a 3-story villa. There were 2 other villas around this villa. Is this a family? Su Weifeng asked tentatively. Yes, this is the main house of our He family, the man behind said proudly. Su Weifeng couldn't help but praise secretly. He had seen the families in Yangcheng, but they were really not as wealthy as the Yulin family. This may be due to the difference in local economy. Yangcheng is a city in the north, and its development is average. It is a city below the 4th tier in China. Yulin is a 2nd tier city in China and a provincial capital. It is much more prosperous than the provincial capital where he is. So the families here must be rich. Even the ZHU family can't compare with the He family. After He Xian got out of the car, she grabbed Su Weifeng's arm again and walked directly to the villa on the left. The 3 men did not stop them and drove away directly. Before entering the villa, a woman in her 40s came out. She looked quite similar to He Xian. She was He Xian's mother. Daughter, you. Alas. She took He Xian's hand and sighed heavily. He Xian still did not let go of Su Weifeng's hand, then bit her lip and said nothing. He Xian's mother looked at Su Weifeng and said, "You must be Mr. Su. Thank you very much for saving my daughter this time. I'm really grateful." Su Weifeng said politely, "You are welcome. Please come in and sit down." He Xian's mother led Su Weifeng into the living room and then took a can of juice for Su Weifeng and Teo. "Mom, brother Su can cure my disease," He Xian suddenly said at this time. The drink in her mother's hand fell to the ground instantly. She looked up at Su Weifeng, but her face looked quite calm. Chapter 519 He family's attitude. As a mother, her daughter has been ill for a long time, and now she knows someone can cure her. The first reaction was shock, and then it was so calm, which made Su Weifeng feel a little strange. He Xian's mother was named Zhaoqing. At this time, she sat on the sofa on the side, looking at Su Weifeng fiercely, and did not speak. He Xian hurriedly said, "Mom, brother Su is a man of real ability. He can definitely cure my illness." "Well, I believe it." Zhaoqing showed a gentle smile on her face and said, "But you were frightened today, which is not conducive to treatment. Besides, Mr. Su just arrived here. We have to entertain him well. How can we let people work now?" He Xian breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Yeah, Mom, I'm really uncomfortable. Let brother Su treat me as soon as possible." Zhaoqing smiled and said, "Of course, but it doesn't matter if it's one day." After chatting for a few words, He Xian couldn't open her eyes. Zhaoqing brought the medicine and said, "Take the medicine quickly and go to sleep for a while." He Xian took the medicine and said to her mother, "Mom, brother Su can really cure my illness. You have to believe in him." Zhaoqing smiled and agreed, then asked the servant to take He Xian back to the room. When only Su Weifeng, Teo and He Xian's mother were left in the living room, Zhaoqing's face also became serious, and she said, "Mr. Su, how long have my daughter and you known each other?" Su Weifeng said lightly, "We just met by chance in the mountains." Zhaoqing stared at Su Weifeng and said, "Then do you know what disease she has?" Su Weifeng met Zhaoqing's gaze and said lightly, "Are you questioning me?" "Yes, as you said, you only saw my daughter for no more than 4 hours. How do you know what disease my daughter has? How can you cure my daughter's disease?" Before Su Weifeng could speak, Teo stood up suddenly and said angrily, "You woman, we kindly saved your daughter's life and wanted to cure her disease, but you still don't believe it. You are simply ungrateful. Are you scolding me?" Zhaoqing's face was already showing anger. "So what if I scold you? As a mother, your daughter is sick. Whether you believe it or not, even if there is a 1% chance, you should think about trying hard. You have done nothing, and you come out to refuse. Do you want your daughter to be well, or do you want your daughter to die? Are you the one who harmed your daughter?" At this point, Tao suddenly shouted out, pointing at Zhaoqing and said, "I know, you are the stepmother, right? Only a stepmother like you can do such a vicious thing. Asshole." Zhao King slapped the armrest of the sofa, stood up suddenly, his face as hen. Cao Cao was not afraid at all and said, "What? Did I say something wrong? Otherwise why don't you want to treat your daughter? If it weren't for my brother Wei Feng today, she would have fallen off the cliff and died. The cliff over there on the glass bridge. Don't you know how dangerous it is there? My brother Wei Feng risked his life to save her, and now that she is rescued, she has a desire to survive. Let's not talk about whether my brother Wei Feng can cure her. Even if he can't, just for making her not want to die and having a desire to survive, you should be grateful to my brother Wei Feng." Zhao King's originally as hen face turned red at this time. Although the anger on her face was still strong, there was an added sense of shame. Cao Cao still didn't finish her words. She sneered and said, "Do you think that for a big family like yours, whatever others do is intended for your family? Bah. You really think highly of yourself. Does my brother Wei Feng want your little family business?" Su Wei Feng quickly stood up and held Cao Cao, saying, "Forget it, let's go." Cao Cao took Su Wei Feng's arm and walked away. "Humph, we should have left a long time ago. We can't do such a good thing carelessly. We still have to endure this kind of humiliation." "Wait a minute, both of you." Zhao King rushed in front of the two people in one step. "What's the matter? Are you angry?" Cao Cao puffed out his chest and looked at Zhao King aggressively. The corner of Zhao King's mouth twitched. The little girl in front of her was really sharp-tongued, and the most important thing was the courage to not take her seriously. In Yulin, most people may not know about the He family, but anyone with some status will know how powerful the He family is. Cao Cao clearly knows about the He family, but she is still so courageous and even dares to scold her in person. This makes her really confused about Cao Cao's background. Su Wei Feng patted Cao Cao's hand and said, "Cao Cao, don't talk nonsense." Cao Cao snorted and said no more. Not only Cao Cao, but even Su Wei Feng, who came here, did not seem to be surprised at all. He always behaved calmly. He was obviously a person who had seen the world. "I'm really sorry. I'm also tortured by my daughter's illness. There are no less than hundreds of doctors and experts who have come to see me in the past few years. Every time they come, they always say that they are sure of the cure, but my daughter's illness is getting worse and worse. Recently, my daughter has no fighting spirit to survive. I'm exhausted, so I doubt you two more. Please forgive me." Seeing that Teo was still angry, Zhao King smiled bitterly and said, "I admit that I'm wrong. I sincerely apologize to you two here. Please sit down and let's talk in detail. You two, for the sake of my daughter, you should stay. Saving a life is better than relying on a 7-story pagoda. Mr. Su has already saved my daughter once. If he leaves now, wouldn't it be letting my daughter die again? What's the point of saving her this time?" Teo snorted and said, "You are good at framing people." Su Wei Feng pulled Cao Cao and said, "I'm just on a business trip to Yulin, and will be back to Yangcheng in a few days. If you trust me, then send her to Yangcheng, otherwise forget it." After that, Su Wei Feng took Cao Cao out directly. Zhao King hurriedly caught up and said anxiously, "Mr. Su, don't be upset, let's discuss it again." Su Wei Feng smiled faintly, but his attitude was extremely firm and said, "No need. Saving people is indeed important, but Xian already has the desire to survive, and will not die for the time being. Why should he treat her now and arouse suspicion? Now that he is a doctor, he must have the dignity of a doctor." 3 people just walked out of the villa door, and 3 people came towards them, with a man in his 30s walking in the middle. He blocked Su Wei Feng's way, kicked his eyes directly, and shouted, "You are so brave. You dare to come to my He family to cheat. Why don't you kneel down?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520 The Unreasonable He Family. Zhao King's face changed, and she said hurriedly, "He, Mr. Su has just saved your sister's life. Humph, my little sister is stupid all day long, and she believes whatever others say. How can Aunt believe such a liar?" The man named He looked gloomy, staring at Su Wei Feng's face, and said, "Boy, do I need to repeat my words again? Kneel down. What if not? Su Weifeng's face had turned cold at this time. He didn't really take Zhao King's doubts to heart. It was just a wound to the dignity of a doctor, but it was understandable. But this he was like this right at the beginning, which was completely insulting. No. Haha. He suddenly laughed and said, "It's been a long time since I met someone who rejected me like this." Tao Tao had been furious for a long time, and now he started to scold her. "You are nothing. Why are you pretending to be so arrogant here?" His laughter stopped abruptly, his face suddenly darkened, and he said, "What a pair of dogs and bitches. Take them down for me. I will have a good trial today, to see who sent them. Are they bullying my He family?" "No." Zhao King hurriedly stopped them. But the two were obviously the thugs of the He family, and at this time they didn't listen to Zhao King at all, and rushed directly towards Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng suddenly felt a surge of evil in his chest. For ordinary people, he really didn't get angry, but for a person like Yi, who had money and power in his hands, he actually did things so indiscriminately. If he bullied others by taking advantage of his power, it would really make him very angry. Humph. Su Weifeng snorted coldly, and his body passed directly between the two thugs like a swimming fish. In an instant, he was behind He, and when he raised his foot, he swept He's knee. He's legs softened immediately, and he knelt on the ground with a thump. Ah! His knee hit the ground, and he cried out in pain. Then he realized that he was kneeling on the ground, and he wanted to struggle to stand up angrily. But a big foot suddenly appeared on his shoulder, like a mountain, pressing his waist down. Bold. The two thugs were shocked and angry, and there was also a strong sense of fear. In front of them, He was insulted like this, so their responsibility was great. They rushed towards Su Weifeng like crazy. Su Weifeng kept stepping on He with one foot, and waved his arms easily, so that the two guys tried their best, but they couldn't save He. "Boy, if you dare to make me kneel down, I will definitely kill you." He was stepped on, and couldn't get up, but his tone was still strong. Su Weifeng sneered and said, "When you asked me to kneel down, did you expect that I would be so humiliated?" He still roared crazily, "Who do you think you are? How dare you compare with me, He? One of my toes is more valuable than your life." Tao Tao shouted excitedly at this time, "Since your life is so valuable and our lives are so worthless, if we kill you today, we will make a lot of money." "Stop." With a loud shout, several people ran over quickly. One of them jumped over first and slapped Su Weifeng in the air. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes. The strength of this person was obviously very strong, even as strong as Menke King's personal bodyguard Qiao Yushan. I think this should be one of the top masters of the He family. Su Weifeng's mind was racing. Showing weakness at this time would only make things more difficult to solve. With a light shout, he greeted it with a palm. The palms of the two people met in the air, making an unreasonable muffled sound. Then Su Weifeng's foot that was stepping on He finally moved down from his shoulder. After landing, the master took another step back, and then stood firm. When he looked at Su Weifeng again, there was clearly a look of surprise in his eyes. "How dare you act wildly in my He family?" A middle-aged man in his 40s came over with a dragon-like gait, stood still, stared at Su Weifeng, and shouted directly. Zhao King rushed forward and said, "Third Master, this is a misunderstanding. You have no place to talk here." The third master shouted at Zhao King directly. Zhao King's face changed, and he wanted to speak. "Stay back." The third master shouted again. Zhao King finally sighed, stepped back directly, and looked at Su Weifeng with a look of apology. Su Weifeng and Tao Tao were both very surprised that Zhao King had such a low status in the He family. Just now, He had no respect for Zhao King. The He family members who attacked him also ignored Zhao King's orders. Now, a person who seemed to be of seniority in the He family directly scolded Zhao King. He had been helped up by someone. At this time, his angry eyes were spitting fire. He pointed at Su Weifeng and shouted loudly, "Kill him for me, now, immediately, immediately." Third Master, Mr. Su saved Xian's life. Zhao King still said boldly at this time. He shouted directly, "Your daughter is a useless person. It's no different if she dies sooner or later. It's better not to save her. Instead, it will cause more trouble to the He family." Humph, you actually asked me to kneel down just now. If I'll let you leave the He family today, I will not be named He. Cao Cao's eyes widened immediately, and he said with a smile in anger, "It's so funny. A person's life is not as important as your breath. Besides, it was clearly you who asked us to kneel down first. What's the matter? You can make others kneel, but others can't make you kneel?" He Yifei turned his head suddenly, glared at Tao Xiangnian, and said with gritted teeth, "You sharp-tongued little girl, kill this kid first. No, break this kid's arms and legs first. I want him to kneel in front of me and watch me play with this little girl. Isn't the little girl good at talking? I'm going to play with your mouth to pieces." Tao Tao's face turned purple with anger. Although she was sharp-tongued, she was only reasoning with others and trying to catch loopholes in their words. However, she could not beat them in scolding. "Okay, boy, I will remember you. I will remember you." Tao Tao pointed at Yifei, gritting her teeth, and her eyes showed a crazy and cruel look. Su Weifeng sighed in his heart. This Yifei was simply courting death. If this guy was rough with him, Su Weifeng would not kill him. At most, he would give him a good beating. But Tao Tao was a top hacker. With such a large industry like the He family, not to mention, whether there were network companies, even the various companies could not do without network office. If Tao Tao took action, it might directly paralyze the He family. The loss would be incalculable. Chapter 521 Severing Relationship. But at this time, everyone just felt that Tao Tao was frightened, and no one felt how crazy Tao Tao's eyes were. The target of the He family was still Su Weifeng. "What are you going to do?" With a cry, a girl rushed out of the villa and came directly in front of Su Weifeng. It was He Xian. She had fallen asleep after taking the medicine, but the noise outside woke her up. Hearing that Su Weifeng had a conflict with his family, she rushed out in a hurry, without even wearing shoes, wearing a small floral pajamas and bare feet. "Get out!" He Yifei roared at He Xian. No. He Xian showed no sign of weakness at this time. She stretched out her arms and said loudly, "This is my savior. You can't treat him like this." He Yifei waved his hand and shouted, "I don't care if he is your savior or not. Now he has offended me, so I will kill him today. If you dare to touch him, just walk over my body. I'll see who dares to move." He Xian actually had a fruit knife in her hand at this time, and she directly pressed it against her neck. Zhao King screamed in fear and said anxiously, "Xian, don't mess around." He Xian said, "Mom, if something happens to Brother Su, I can't live either. No matter what, I have to protect Brother Su." He Yifei said angrily, "Don't pay attention to her. If she wants to die, she can die. Go and kill that kid for me." The men around the third master were a little hesitant at this time. They could not care about He Xian at ordinary times, but this time it involved life and death. After all, He Xian was also a member of the He family. If she really died in an accident, it really couldn't be ignored. At this time, the third master waved his hand to stop the Yifei. He looked at He Xian with a gloomy look and said slowly, "Xian, do you know that you are helping an outsider now?" He Xian immediately said, "I don't care if it is an outsider or not. I only know that she helped me, but you treated him like this. It is the He family that is wrong." The third master shouted softly, "Bold, it is not your turn to say these. I tell you now, if you still protect him and want to keep him away, then from now on, you will be expelled from the He family, and you will no longer be a part of the He family." He Xian looked at the third master, then at He Yifei, and other members of the He family. Then the corners of her mouth twitched, revealing a sad smile, and said, "In this family, besides my mother, has anyone really cared about me? Don't you just think that I have some of the things left to me by my great-grandfather? Well, I don't want it. I will return it all to your He family. I'm leaving now." After that, He Xian took off the bracelet on her wrist and threw it out, saying, "The key is this bracelet." He Yifei rushed over and picked up the bracelet, his face full of excitement. "Can I go with them now?" He Xian looked at the third master with burning eyes. The third master took a breath and said, "Okay, from now on, you can no longer do things as a member of my He family." Humph. He Xian sneered, then took Su Weifeng with one hand and Tao Tao with the other, and walked straight to the parking lot. No one from the He family came to stop them, and they took a car and drove away. After leaving the He family's compound, He Xian said apologetically, "Brother Su, Sister Teo, I'm so sorry for making you suffer." Teo just snorted at this time and said, "Whoever makes me suffer, I will repay him tenfold or 100-fold. Then he turned to Su Weifeng and said, "You should have wiped out the He family just now, killing all of them, and see if they are still showing off there." Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, "You are too murderous, little girl. Don't have such a bad temper. Aren't you angry? Aren't you angry? They actually said that they would break your limbs and make you kneel down and watch him molest me. I'm your girlfriend. As a man, aren't you angry?" Su Weifeng's tone was surprisingly calm, and he said, "Let's talk about it when we get back." Teo glanced at Su Weifeng and said no more. There was also a He Xian in the car. Su Weifeng also changed the subject and said to He Xian, "Aren't you paying too much to come out with us like this?" He Xian smiled sadly and said, "A lot. I didn't have anything here to begin with. If I had anything, it was only false concern, all kinds of humiliation and loneliness. Now that I'm leaving here, I suddenly feel a lot more relieved." Then he sighed and said, "Brother Su, I originally thought that if you cured my illness, I could give you enough in return. But now I'm leaving the Su family and have nothing. I don't know what I can give you." Teo immediately said, "You don't have to think about promising yourself to him. He has enough women." He Xian was immediately embarrassed and said hurriedly, "Sister Teo, you're overthinking. How could I be so ungrateful? Brother Su saved me, and I only respect him in my heart. To do such a thing would be against the will of heaven." Teo then said with satisfaction, "Don't make it sound so serious. I'm also his lover, not his wife or girlfriend." He Xian was stunned. Teo chuckled and said, "This guy's too philandering. He's married and has a wife, but he's still flirting with other girls outside. You'd better be careful and don't let him take advantage of you." He Xian subconsciously shrank back a little. Seeing that Su Weifeng didn't refute, she was even more nervous. Teo was even more satisfied and said, "If it's something like curing a disease, then we'll cure it. We won't ask you to do anything, and we won't ask you for any reward." He Xian hurriedly said, "Thank you, but I feel even more empty inside." She left home to protect Su Weifeng, because in her first impression, Su Weifeng was a hero. Following a hero, it was also in line with a girl's expectations. But if this was a man who was greedy for flowers and lustful, it would greatly reduce the image of this hero, and she would feel uncomfortable. But looking at Teo's smiling expression, He Xian suddenly felt something was wrong. Teo was not afraid that she would have some thoughts about Su Weifeng, so she said that, "How could a woman who is a man's lover be so relaxed and casual when talking about his wife, without any fear or hatred?" However, He Xian did not show it, otherwise Teo would not feel at ease. The three of them came to the hotel and opened a room for He Xian. They arranged for He Xian to stay there first. Teo immediately returned to her room. Su Weifeng quickly explained to He Xian and went to Teo's room. He really wanted to see how Teo would do it, and to what extent. Chapter 522 Tao's Revenge begins. When he entered Teo's room, he saw Teo sitting at the table, typing away at the keyboard. Su Weifeng sat at the end of the bed, looked at Teo's profile, and said, "What are you going to do?" Teo's face was tense, his eyes fixed on the screen, and he just snorted. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "You have such a bad temper." Teo turned her head and said angrily, "Aren't you angry? They actually said such hateful words, and I can feel that if we don't have the ability to leave, they will definitely do it. How can you still be in the mood to laugh?" Su Weifeng shrugged his shoulders and said, "I won't punish myself for the mistakes of others. Since we have already left, if I'm still angry, then the only one who will feel uncomfortable is me, or it will make my friends feel bad with me." Teo pouted and said, "You are just saying chicken soup for the soul. Anyway, the more I think about that guy, the angrier I get. Humph, we are kind enough to save people, but they treat us like this, and their bullying attitude makes me even more angry. No matter what you say, I will take revenge. If that bastard doesn't come and kneel down and beg me, I will make them bankrupt." Su Weifeng did not persuade Teo. With Teoteo's status, she is usually pampered and spoiled. Who would dare to talk to her like that? What's more, what the He family did was really excessive. Tao Tao dealt with them, and it seemed that it would make them remember it, which was not a bad thing. All-round internet technology company. This is an online game company. The company's several online games have a lot of users and bring a lot of economic benefits to the company every day. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the company's server suddenly crashed. For 3 or 4 hours, the players were unable to go online. The company's technicians hurriedly investigated the problem. Although they saw that it was attacked by hackers, they could not find out how the other party attacked and who attacked it. It was not easy to restore the server. Although there were some losses, they were not big. Everyone just raised their vigilance and remembered. But soon, the company discovered a major problem. Many players in the game actually had a lot of virtual currency. They didn't need to recharge, but they also got a lot of currency that needed to be recharged. Especially those non-RMB players, the currency value was even higher. That's not all. Many people's equipment was directly given a very high level. A large number of super powerful players were instantly produced. Whether a game can keep players playing, in addition to fun, fairness is also very important. In this situation, the game has lost its balance in an instant. The game company was shocked and started to remedy the situation. But they soon found that the changes in these data were so strong that it was hard to find any traces. In other words, it was obviously impossible to change the illegal accounts directly through technical means. They wanted to restore the data from a day ago, but they found that the other party had even tampered with the data in the backup, and the data from the previous few days was also messed up. Unless the data was changed to a month ago. If this was really done, the players would definitely not do it. After playing hard for a month, all the results were gone, and no one could accept it. But if the data is not restored, the data is messy in this situation. The game has completely lost its balance, and players will not continue to play it. Soon, all the players received an email. Please copy the following paragraph to the public channel, and you will get a big gift package. It was a curse word. The player didn't care about that, and immediately copied it, and posted it on the public channel. In an instant, the public channel was full of all kinds of curse words. He yiffy, you bitch. He yiffy, you big bastard. He yiffy is a glass, and a little bitch. He yiffy was in the office of the CEO of the game company at this time. He was the main person in charge of this game company. As soon as the situation occurred, he received the news and rushed here. He threw my ashtray to the ground and roared angrily, "You bunch of idiots. I spent so much money to hire you, but you can't even handle this little thing, and now you are being scolded. Are you all shit eating?" The technicians in the office bowed their heads and dared not say a word. The technical director waited for Heifi to lose his temper for a while before whispering, "Bossy, I think this is a large-scale attack specifically targeting our company." Heifi slammed the table and said angrily, "Nonsense, how could I not know that this is targeting our company? I just asked you to track down who did it, but you didn't find out at all." The technical director said tremblingly, "Bossy, the other party's technology is extremely high, and this level is definitely something that only top hackers can do. This is no longer a problem we can solve, so we have to find the root cause, know who wants to deal with our company, and then find the other party from this aspect, and make them stop. If this situation is not resolved within 2 days, I'm afraid this game will be ruined. Asshole." He cursed again, saying, "If I knew who was coming to deal with us, I wouldn't need you to tell me. The He family is strong in Yulin, and ordinary families dare not go against the He family, and if they are not in a competitive relationship, there is no need to do such a thing." But he thought about it, and didn't expect that any game company would do such a thing against him. "Mr. He," a technician said cautiously at this time. "What's the matter? If you have something to say, just say it. If you have something to say, just fart." He roared impatiently. The technician's mouth twitched, and then he whispered, "Now on the public channel, everyone is cursing Mr. He personally, so are they Mr. He's personal enemies?" He frowned immediately. The technical director immediately said, "That seems to make sense. If the other party is targeting our company, it seems that they will not curse Mr. He. After all, Mr. He is not the legal person of the company. Another technician said, and this hacker attack is completely a destructive act. The other party obviously did not take anything related to this game, whether it is technology or anything else. It is simply to make this game unable to continue. He literally racked his brains to think about it, but it seems that he has not offended those big shots recently. As for those small shots, offending them is not within his consideration, and they don't have the ability to do it. In his mind, he also thought of Su Weifeng and Tao Tao today, but he immediately ruled out the two people from his mind. Even though their origins were not clear yet, a hacker attack of this scale should take a long time to prepare, and they did not have the time to prepare. Chapter 523. Who is responsible for this? After receiving a call, He came to the headquarters of the He group. Although it was already midnight, many important figures in the He group were already here. Even the old man of the He family, who had not appeared for a long time, was already sitting here. He hurriedly greeted the old man, but the old man had a gloomy face and did not speak, which made He quite uneasy. Yiffy, come and take a look. The third master called He to a computer. He looked at the screen on the computer and his face suddenly turned black. There was a man on it, trying to please another man, and it was so disgusting to be servile. And the most important thing was that the man was actually him, He. The video was not long, but it was played repeatedly on the computer. This is definitely not me. He's face turned green, and he immediately denied it. The third master said, of course I know it's not you, but now all the computers in our headquarters are playing this picture. As long as you are connected to our company's intranet, you can see it, and unless you turn off the computer, this picture will keep appearing. And you can't even format and reinstall the computer. His face turned even greener, and he roared angrily, bastard, which bastard did this? You don't know either? The old man of the He family, who had been sitting there, asked with a sullen face. He said hurriedly, Grandpa, I really don't know. My game company is also having problems now. I'm also looking for who the other party is. The old man narrowed his eyes and said, on the whole, this matter is not only against you personally, but also against our He family. Otherwise, they would not attack our He family headquarters. Yiffy may be a lure. Think about it, who would launch such a large-scale attack on our He family now? The second oldest of the second generation of the He family, also known as the second master, said, Father, I think about it. Such a large-scale attack must have been prepared for a long time, and a detailed investigation has been conducted on our He family. This will definitely have a lot of conflicts of interest with our He family, so. The old man frowned and said, are you talking about the Zheng family? Second master He nodded and said, I feel that the Zheng family is the biggest suspect. The old man shook his head and said, I know the old man from the Zheng family too well. He won't have such big ambitions. He is also cautious and prudent. It is impossible for him to do such radical things. In addition, this incident is more about sabotage, which is not in line with his style of doing things. I smiled bitterly and said, then we can't figure out who is going to deal with us now. The old man pondered for a moment and said, the most important thing now is to solve the current problem. Our existing technicians seem to be unable to cope with this situation. Now you should immediately hire technicians at a high price. No matter how much it costs, you must hire real experts to solve the current problem. Everyone agreed in unison. The old man said again, you all go down. Yiffy stay. Everyone left, and Yiffy looked at the old man nervously. This time he always felt that the matter was related to him. He was usually arrogant, but in front of the old man, who had absolute authority in the He family, he had to behave himself. The old man said calmly, Yiffy, did you get Xian's things? Yiffy's face froze, and then he said awkwardly, yes, I got it. The old man sighed and said, alas, for these things, you kids are fighting over them, but I don't know if they are actually useful. Yiffy said seriously, this is what the great-grandfather said himself. I think the great-grandfather will never make up something and deliberately deceive us. Alas, but Xian is now driven out by you, but she is also the blood of the He family. Yiffy immediately frowned and said, Grandpa, she is just the eldest uncle's concubine's child, and she has severe depression. She has tried to commit suicide several times. She is also annoying at home. If she wants to leave, let her go. The old man sighed, said nothing, and then waved his hand. He then withdrew. The He family is now confused and can only contact experts to solve the problem, but if the loss is delayed for an hour, it is unknown how much loss it will be. It was the first time that Su Weifeng saw Tao Tao's serious look. This girl was really selfless when she was serious. Her fingers were working very fast, and she didn't even look at him. After more than an hour, Tao Tao didn't get up. Su Weifeng didn't care about her anymore and came to He Xian's room again. He Xian was still wearing the floral pajamas, but her face was tired. Am I disturbing your rest? Su Weifeng asked. He Xian said hurriedly, no, I always feel very sleepy after taking the medicine, but I don't want to sleep now, so I feel a little uncomfortable. Many antidepressants are conducive to sleep. After all, one of the major symptoms of depression is unwillingness to sleep. Su Weifeng nodded and said, in that case, I will help you check it, and then you can have a good sleep. Check it now? He Xian's eyes showed excitement. Su Weifeng said, well, I just felt it at that time, and many situations have not been confirmed. You lie down on the bed first. Lie on the bed. He Xian subconsciously nervous. Su Weifeng immediately knew what He Xian was thinking. He smiled and said, I'm a little abrupt. It's getting late today, and Tao is not here. I'll check you when Tao comes tomorrow. He Xian felt a little embarrassed at this time and said quickly, Brother Su, don't get me wrong. I'm not doubting what you want to do to me. I'm just a little nervous instinctively. I'll lie down now. As she spoke, He Xian quickly lay down on the bed. Then her face turned red and she said, do you want to take off your clothes? Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, no, this is fine. He Xian breathed a sigh of relief and said, then what should I do now? Su Weifeng came to the bed, looked down at He Xian, and said, just relax. I'm going to use my true key to check the breath in your body. You should be able to feel it. In addition, my fingers will follow the true key. If they touch, ahem. He Xian actually showed a shy smile at this time, and said, Brother Su, I understand. I'm a patient, and Brother Su is the doctor. Doctors treat patients. Why would they have so many concerns? Just do it. Chapter 524, Illness Examination. Su Weifeng had been prepared for the strange aura in He Xian's body, but when he actually touched it, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. The opponent's method was very clever, but Su Weifeng also knew this method. This method was usually used to interrogate difficult prisoners. And now this aura in He Xian's body was brought in by this method, and judging from the amount of true energy left by the opponent, it was definitely left by a master. Even if this master is not as capable as he was at his peak, it is about the same as his current strength. People who can use this method are not ordinary people. Those with weak strength cannot use it, and those with strong strength may not know this method. Now there is actually such a master who attacks a girl like He Xian. It seems that it is not that simple. Is there a big problem with He Xian herself? After a careful inspection, except for this aura in He Xian's body, He Xian herself does not have it, so He Xian is not a master. This made Su Weifeng give up the idea. He Xian was afraid that it was difficult for her to know why the other party attacked her. Only the person who attacked her and the mastermind behind the scenes knew. What gave Su Weifeng a headache was that the breath left in He Xian's body not only hurt her brain, but also colluded with her meridians. It seemed like his own true key. The meridians in He Xian's body gave the breath natural nourishment, so it not only did not weaken, but also strengthened a lot. If you want to get rid of it, it will definitely not be that easy. This is indeed a situation that Su Weifeng has never encountered before, so he has no experience at all. Now how to start? He has to think carefully. Squinting his eyes, tapping his fingers gently, Su Weifeng thought about this novel thing, and couldn't help but be a little absent-minded, but he didn't notice that the position where his fingers tapped seemed a little special. He Xian felt that her chest was being tapped again and again, which was really embarrassing. How could this brother Su have such a special hobby? It was really puzzling and embarrassing. However, looking at Su Weifeng's thoughtful look, He Xian quickly figured it out. It was clearly Su Weifeng who was lost in thought. It was a completely unconscious action, and he was not taking advantage of her at all. After a while, Su Weifeng finally opened his eyes and saw He Xian's red face. I'm so sorry, I was so absorbed in my thoughts that I actually. He Xian interrupted Su Weifeng and said softly, I know that brother, he is thinking about how to treat my condition. I was afraid of disturbing brother Su, so I didn't disturb you. Su Weifeng said awkwardly, in this case, it's better for you to remind me. He Xian nodded and said shyly, well, I will remind brother Su next time. The two were silent for a while, and then Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, I just checked carefully, and now I have a few questions to ask you. Okay. He Xian also tensed up, because this was related to whether he could cure the disease. Su Weifeng immediately asked a question involving He Xian's physical reaction. This kind of treatment cannot be determined by his own examination alone, and it is also necessary to confirm something through the patient's own reaction. As she spoke, He Xian's condition became worse and worse, and her face became paler and paler. She choked and said, Brother Su, please cure me quickly. I have nightmares every night, and I dare not close my eyes. I'm really in such a state of pain. Su Weifeng nodded and said, it's okay. I will wait until you fall asleep before leaving today. I won't let you feel so uncomfortable, but it's impossible to cure you all at once. I need to get rid of the aura in your body little by little. Will you feel less uncomfortable today? He Xian's eyes were full of expectation. I will. So, take a hot bath first and relax yourself. This way, when I help you treat you later, the effect will be better. I will go to see Teo Teo. Su Weifeng went to see Teo Teo and saw that Teo Teo was still fighting there, and the whole person was in an excited state. Although Su Weifeng was not an expert, he had some knowledge of hacking techniques. It was definitely difficult for Teo Teo to attack the network system of a large group company by himself. Teo Teo's operation was like a group of hackers working together, which showed how strong she was. Seeing that Teo Teo was almost forgetting to eat and sleep, Su Weifeng had to ask the hotel to make some food and send it over. Teo Teo just put the food aside and took a bite occasionally. Seeing that Teo Teo was having a lot of fun, Su Weifeng stopped disturbing her. Feeling that it was about time, he brought the extra food to He Xian's room again. Hey, it smells so good. I haven't felt like eating for a long time. He Xian exclaimed in surprise. Su Weifeng put things on the table and said, you probably have no appetite at all, right? Yeah, I seldom eat normally. I don't want to eat at all, and I don't feel hungry. But today, I actually feel a little hungry and want to eat. I don't know how long it has been since I felt this way. Su Weifeng nodded and said, this is a manifestation of depression. He Xian said in surprise, didn't you say that this was caused by the breath in my body? This breath is the main cause, but you are tortured by this breath, and you do have severe depression. This can be confirmed from your various reactions. He Xian looked at Su Weifeng with a bitter face. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, although your depression is serious, don't worry. As long as the influence of your breath is cured, you will not be affected by nightmares, and then you will no longer have that intense psychological pressure. Depression is actually cured without treatment. He Xian then breathed a sigh of relief and said, I believe in Brother Su. I can feel that as long as Brother Su is by my side, I feel very energetic. When you left for a while just now, I felt indescribable discomfort. Just like before, as soon as you came back, I immediately became energetic. Su Weifeng smiled and said, that's good. This is at least a good start. Your trust in me will make the treatment more effective. Judging from He Xian's reaction, Su Weifeng was afraid that these girls would stick to him in the next few days. Chapter 525, Severe Dependence. Although He Xian said she was hungry, she only ate a little bit. However, judging from her satisfied look, even if it was just a little bit, she hadn't eaten properly for a long time. Su Weifeng felt a little sorry for her, and at the same time, he was a little annoyed with the person who did it. How big a grudge must he have to attack He Xian? After eating, Su Weifeng once again let He Xian lie on the bed and officially started to treat her for the first time. In fact, this time it was not a real treatment. Su Weifeng just wanted to better understand that breath, and then use his own true key to appease that breath, and prevent it from running around in He Xian's body. This seems simple to say, But in fact, it is not easy to do. It took 2 hours for Su Weifeng to stop. He Xian had fallen asleep at this time. He Xian's sleeping posture was very sweet at this time, with a sweet smile on her face, as if she had encountered something very good. Su Weifeng knew that this must be the effect of his true qi. Otherwise, for a patient with severe depression, it would be extremely difficult to sleep so comfortably. As soon as Su Weifeng took his hand off He Xian's arm, He Xian's brows frowned. After Su Weifeng stood up, He Xian actually opened her eyes all of a sudden. Su Weifeng felt that his movements were extremely light, and He Xian should never feel him getting up. "Brother Su, are you leaving?" He Xian sat up immediately. "Oh, you have a good sleep, and that's all for tonight." He Xian said and asked cautiously, "Will I still have nightmares tonight?" "You fell asleep just now. Did you have a nightmare?" Su Weifeng asked back. He Xian said happily, "No, I didn't know when I fell asleep just now. I slept very soundly. That means it's effective. Let's see tonight. You rest first. I have to go back too. Thank you for troubling me, Brother Su." Seeing that He Xian was about to get up to see him off, Su Weifeng said quickly, "Okay, you don't have to get up, otherwise you will be very energetic. Before you leave, I will treat you so that you can sleep well." He Xian was relieved immediately. Obviously, she had made such a request just now, but she was embarrassed to speak. Su Weifeng put his hand on He Xian's forehead. He Xian closed her eyes and fell asleep soon. After confirming that He Xian really entered a deep sleep, Su Weifeng let go of his hand. But He Xian opened her eyes immediately. Su Weifeng was really dumbfounded. He clearly felt that He Xian had fallen asleep. This sudden awakening was simply not in line with the reaction of a normal person. Su Weifeng immediately put his hand on He Xian's forehead again. He Xian opened her eyes and slowly closed them. After a while, she fell into a deep sleep again. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched. It seemed that he was here to comfort He Xian, so that He Xian could fall asleep peacefully. However, he was not comfortable touching her head all the time. After hesitating for a while, his hand gently moved down from her face to her shoulders, and finally held her hand. Although He Xian's eyes were about to open several times, she still closed her eyes and finally remained asleep. Shaking his head, Su Weifeng held He Xian's hand with one hand, and moved the sofa to the same level as the bed. This single sofa in the hotel, plus the footpad, can be used for a night's sleep. When Su Weifeng woke up the next morning, he felt a pair of bright eyes looking at him all the time. When he opened his eyes, he met He Xian's gaze. "Brother Su, you have worked so hard, thank you." He Xian lay there on her side, her eyes full of gratitude and excitement. "How did you sleep last night?" Su Weifeng immediately sat up and asked about her situation. He Xian also sat up and said in high spirits, "I haven't slept so well in a long time. I didn't have any nightmares and woke up at around 3 in the morning." Woke up at around 3. Su Weifeng glanced at his phone. It was already past 5 o'clock. He said, "Did our hands separate?" "Ah. Brother Su, you were holding my hand the whole time." He Xian's eyes widened. Su Weifeng nodded and said, "Well, I found that you can fall asleep when I touch you, and you wake up immediately when I take my hand away. Now the main focus is on studying how to treat He Xian's illness, so there is nothing that cannot be said about these things, and there is no need to consider the kind of things between men and women." He Xian thought for a moment and said, "I seem to have had that feeling a few times yesterday. I was sleeping very well, just like when I was a child being held by my mother, very comfortable, but suddenly my mother let go of me, and a feeling of uneasiness came into my mind. I felt very uncomfortable, but it seemed to be just 2 times, and then it was gone. In the end, it was this uneasiness that woke me up." Su Weifeng knew that this was the result of his letting go of He Xian several times, and he couldn't help but frowned. He Xian was very smart. At this time, she said carefully, "This should be because Brother Su gave me a great sense of security, so when you were by my side holding my hand, I could sleep well. When you let go, I was like before." Su Weifeng said, "That's it, and it's not. It should be that when I held your hand, the breath in your body couldn't flow, and the root was still in this breath." He Xian asked, "Then when can this be removed?" "It will probably take some time." After all, this breath has been in your body for too long, and it is not easy to expel it. He Xian looked at Su Weifeng, and a blush rose on her face. Su Weifeng stood up and said, "It's still early, I'll go back first." "Okay, thank you for your hard work, brother Su." He Xian quickly stood up and sent Su Weifeng out of the room. Su Weifeng did not go back to the room, but went directly to the gym. He rarely exercises when he is on a business trip, so it is quite necessary to take time to exercise. Back in the room, Su Weifeng took a shower and cleaned up, and then came to Teo's room again. Su Weifeng had applied for an extra door card for Teo's room yesterday, so he swiped the card and walked in. Teo was sitting in front of the computer at this time. Her face was tense. Su Weifeng sat next to her and said, "What's wrong? Are you still angry?" Teo gritted her teeth and said, "These bastards, they don't even apologize. They are still not convinced. I must make you convinced." They are still not convinced. Su Weifeng couldn't help but be very surprised. With Teo's behavior, I'm afraid that the He family will lose more than 100 million yuan this night. Doesn't the He family realize how serious this matter is? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.